to the UCLG Retreat 2022. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas al retiro anual de CGLU de 2022. Bienvenue tout le monde à la retraite de CGLU de 2022. Before we start, just to let you know that we have interpretation in English, French and Spanish. Tenemos interpretación inglés, francés, espagnol. Nous avons interprétation disponible en anglais, français, espagnol. My name is Ana Calvete. I'm from the UCLG Gold Team or Research Team.
Mon nom est Carole Morillon, je suis la coordinatrice des affaires statutaires au secrétariat mondial de CGLU. Bienvenue, bienvenue de nouveau et bienvenue à nos participants et nos participantes en ligne.
Para los que nos siguen desde casa o desde la oficina, acabamos de tener una sesión con los participantes que están en Barcelona para romper un poquito el hielo, conocernos entre nosotros y recuperar esas viejas amistades que hacía tiempo que no veíamos.
Oui, en effet, nous le disions tout à l'heure, 2 ans sans se voir, ça fait longtemps, donc nous sommes ravis de vous ouvrir de nouveau les fenêtres de la maison mondiale de CGLU, ici à Barcelone, et avec vous, que nous voyons sur nos écrans. Et sans plus attendre, je vais donner la parole à la secrétaire générale de CGLU qui va nous présenter cette session plénière de bienvenue en 2022. Emilia Saiz.
Merci Carole, merci Ana, muchas gracias. Welcome everybody from afar. I see Sian over there. I see Bernardia is with us from Jakarta. I see The Hague. I see Montevideo, Bolivia. Welcome everybody. It is really a pleasure to have you with us. What we want you to feel this week is, above all, our love, our strength, our vision, our enthusiasm. That's what we want you to feel. And we want you to feel it here in the room, but we also want the people at home to feel it with us. We know it's a little bit weird to have this combination of the Zoom windows and our heart window, but I am certain that we will make it, that it will be interesting. The retreat is very important for us because, you know, the rock stars in our movement are the politicians. And I'm looking at the president of the Canadian Federation of Municipalities. I'm looking at the president of Nouakchott. They are our stars. But during the retreat week, although they are still very protagonic in everything that we do, what we are trying to achieve is to ensure that our vision, the things that we do every day to make their ideas happen as a movement, that is what we focus on. So we are a little bit of the star as well, we in the teams, at the secretariats. And that's what makes it such a fun. And that's why also we are so happy that the sections secretariats are with us, you know, from Jakarta to Istanbul, to Latin America, but also Europe. We are really, really grateful that you join us. We are also very thankful for those that make the machine go, that they power the machine. And those are our committees, our fora, all of these friends that are here. And of course, our partners, those that inspire us every day, that give us new ideas, that criticize us, that gives us the real feedback that we need for transformation. So get ready for a week of improvisation. Get ready for a week of flexibility. Get ready to give your opinion, because your opinion matters, and we are ready to get it and to make sure that your opinions are part of the work plan. That if we haven't thought about it, they will be included. So this is why we need a full week, because we know you are opinionated. And we know that we need to make a space for all these different views, for our diversity to be taken into account. Now, as Ana and Carol were saying before, this week is going to allow us also to work towards our World Congress. The World Summit of Local and Regional Governments is going to take place in Daejeon, in South Korea, in October. And we are getting ready to make it happen, to not only mobilize our membership to join, but also to make it meaningful. And we have such wonderful hosts. You can't imagine how wonderful they are. And they surprise us every day with new concepts. And we want you to have a little bit of a peek of that in a second. Allow me first, and I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't sure because every single person in this room is so important to us, so close to our hearts. We know each other for such a long time, I feel, Najat, indeed. So I could stop and go one by one, but there is one particular person that I think deserves to be acknowledged for being a warrior, for being here with us today as a strong woman, as a survivor, as a leader. I thank the former mayor of Nili from Afghanistan that you are here with us today. I didn't want to do this because I knew I would cry. So I'm trying to hold my act together, dear Sarah. And I want to acknowledge you just said to me, I don't represent anyone now. I think you represent all of us. You truly broke the glass roof. You truly led your people until you were able to lead them. And we are so grateful that you are safe. Maybe not where you want to be, but you are part of the family. Welcome, truly. So, colleagues, we have a full week to think how we are going to make her feel part of the family and how to make sure that she can give back to the family and the family back to her. We will talk about that later. There are many, many occasions to do that now. But now, let us gift ourselves with one of those wonderful surprises that we have enjoyed in the office already. A wonderful surprise from the young. Look at that. And listen to that. And dance to that if you're there. This is how it's going to be there. Get ready. We've got the song.
우리가 바라보는 세상이 되고 그 세상 하나로 모여 평화를 위해 함께 얘기해 그곳이 여기야 하나가 된 도시야 이제 시작이야 세계의 평화가 이곳 대전에서 시작돼
Test you at the end of the week.
UCLG is together. UCLG is together. UCLG is together. 우리가
everybody. Believe me, being the Secretary General of UCLG is not always this fun. But it has many of these moments, really, it does. Because we're such a powerful movement, and we're so diverse, and so close to the street, to the needs of the citizens, to what matters at the end of the day, that yeah, you find fun almost in every single thing that we do. And if you can put a little bit of music to it, then it's even better. So we're really grateful for that music that our hosts have given us. If you look at it, they have also been very generous because they have gone through all of the cities that have hosted us before. And I love the motto, the UCLG for together. I mean, that is like maximum. It's forever. But now, let us go back to this new setting and this new way of doing things. I am here sitting at the stairs with my colleagues because in this new reality that we have, there are no longer stages. There are no longer podia. Nothing is predefined. Everything moves. One time the important thing is there, and next time the important thing is here. And the most important things of all is what we all decide together. And the presentation that I and my colleagues are going to be doing for you today is about that beating heart that is signifying the movement coming together in October. But of course, when you go to such an event, you don't go empty-handed. You go with baggage, sometimes very heavy baggage of pain, of difficulties, of concerns. And I remember when we were getting ready for our previous Congress in Africa, there were three things that we were concerned about. Oh, there were many more, believe me, no. But there were three that I would highlight. And I remember that very, very clearly because it was my first Congress as Secretary General. And so I had to do this pitch to our elected officials and check with them whether we were right. And at that moment, what concerned us was democracy. There is no trust. People do not believe that democracy is the best system anymore. They don't know where decisions are taken. Democracy was a very big concern. Is that even relevant anymore, democracy? If everything is about efficiency, is democracy relevant? Now, the second thing, thank you for colleagues for welcoming me. The second thing that concerned us was the technocratization of responses. Every single firm in the world had an app that local governments had to buy. And they solved it all with that app. But we have come to know that you cannot solve everything with applications, that some of the solutions are not technological, that they are much deeper in what we want to do, in the way that we want to live. Believe me, this was really our second concern. And then finally, we were also concerned about our movement, about associativism, because the ecosystem was changing and people, our membership, did not really see the value, or maybe they did, but we were concerned they didn't. They didn't see the value of belonging to a system like ours. They did not understand the difference between campaigning and associativism. One thing is to campaign. You get together for a cause, you rally. Another thing is to create a movement. Another thing is to actually try to transform through a specific representative representation of diversity. Finding the common goal, even if you don't agree all the time and making sure that transformation happens with those that are not like-minded, with everyone. Now, that is what our movement has been achieving for years. Even when our first conference took place in 1913, that movement, that conference came out of the peace-building movement. And the Great Wars had not happened even yet. But at that moment, the planners, the executive directors of municipalities, the mayors, they came together because they were convinced that they needed to find solutions together. Now, in Durban, in our Congress, we tried to address these concerns. And we developed incredible tools, tools that we thought were truly universal for everybody. We came with a very strong political narrative around democracy, which we had kind of forgotten, because we thought, okay, we need to talk about efficiency, about having executive officers to deal with resilience questions. And, we had gone also down that path. But in Durban, we realized that going back to the core, that defending democracy, that defending decentralization was going to be a very important part of our agenda. And we came back full of energy for that. And when after Durban we met in our last in-person retreat in Tangier, we discussed about synchronizing how important it was that these big objectives that we all have would be objectives not only that are shared, but that are synchronized, that we put things in motion together so that if more of us are visible, more impact will be achieved. And this was our second shift that we tried to do. And when we were in the middle of doing this, the little windows appeared because the world had stopped, because we were at home and we couldn't stop. So we started to work together in a different manner. We translated synchronization in a common space where we could put all the information that we had. We created this notion of UCLG Meet. We also thought that we could not forget how important the political voices were, and at a moment where public was back, our politicians really took the challenge. Our leadership developed this decalogue for the post-pandemic era, where we were convinced we would be doing things better, different, that the new normal would not be the same normal, that it would be a normal that would take into account those that had less, that equality would be at the heart of what we did, that our relationship with nature would be changing because it was part and parcel of the problem that we were facing. And that, yes, women would have a different role. Because if women were the key and the answer to many of the care services that we needed, why wouldn't we be taking care of women in a different manner? And you see, little by little, our care narrative started to shape. And we realized that it was good that public was back. It was good that the commons, the common will, the common goods, that they were part of our narrative, but that we needed to go a step further and make sure that we could go from service provision to care provision. And in order to do that, we received a mandate from our executive bureau. In order to do that, we realized that we had to utilize a very, very important tool that we had discovered on our way to Durban. And that important tool is the town halls. Our structural dialogue with civil society. Without that structural dialogue, we would not be able to develop new ideas, to foster and trigger innovation. And that's why the town halls are so important in our process. And that's why we are so keen that many of our partners of the town hall participate throughout this week. It's extremely important because government is important, but governance is even more important. And they can be really building blocks, these structural dialogues that we have. And finally, I wouldn't say finally, this is not the end, but something that we also were trying to discover for ourselves is, where does our potential lie? We have these structural relationships. We have this notion that we can go from service provision to care provision. And this is a systemic change that we need to make happen. What do we need to make it come about? Our political leadership was convinced that what we needed was not a new social contract, but actually a pact for the future. A pact for the future where the interest of new generations would have a very, very important role. And the balance between the needs of those generations that are here today and the interest of the future generations would be very strong. And in that pact for the future, in order to get that balance, we know we need to change relationships between people, and we think that feminism is the key to that. A new type of leadership. It's not about women, men. It's about a different type of leadership, of men and women alike, with different sensitivities and different objectives. But we also know that we had to change our relationship with nature, and we think that culture is a very critical, it's a very critical piece for that transformation. It's not about using different resources. It's not about decarbonization only. It's not about mitigation and adaptation. It's about a different way of life, a different quality of life, where things are different. You know, at the end of the day, it is about that transcendent objective, the big objective, the utopia that has actually shifted the future of most generations. And being one of those generations whose actions are more heavy on the future than those of any generation before, our political leadership has said, let us explore those axes, because we will need to change the policies that we put in place every day. So the Pact for the Future also entails a different type of governance system. A governance system that is not only multi-level and multi-stakeholder in the United Nations. It's truly a co-creation space that changes the relationships among powers. And that, as some of our Ubuntu advisors say all the time, it is not getting us ready for emergency, but it's actually getting us ready for context, for whatever it is to come. We don't know what it is to come, but we know that the power represented in this room, the power of we together, can really make it happen. Well, this week is about the power of we together. So thank you for your attention, and allow me now to call my colleagues to present different parts of our work program. But thank you for listening. So allow me now to call my colleagues, Edgardo Bilski, Carole Morignon, again, Carole was saying they are going to be very tired of me. I said, don't worry, they will be getting tired of me too, eventually. Sarah Hoflich is somewhere here as well, and Jean-Baptiste Bouffet. This is just a small sample of the colleagues of the Secretariat, but they are leading the work in different areas. Carole is leading the work on statutory affairs. Jean-Baptiste is coordinating the work on policy. Sarah Hoflich is leading the team on learning, the learning agenda. And Edgardo Birsky, as you know, is heading our research work. And to them, I was brainstorming with them about how to best present the work that we do in a manner that is not a PowerPoint with all the products that you already know. Because the people in this room are the people that really know us, right? That have been working with us hand in hand. So we wanted to present to you a different perspective of our work. And in order to give them this opportunity, I want to ask them some questions. And the first questions that I have is, of course, what have been, you know, in this reality that I have been describing, where we were working from our Zoom, we were not seeing each other, we were having this message of we need to keep meeting, we need to keep learning, we need to keep researching, but we also need to advocate, and we also need to care for everyone. What have been the priorities for your work area? So I'm going to start with Sarah. And I would like you, Sarah, to share with us what has been the priorities over these past 2 years that have been so special for all of us, for the past 2.
It's okay. Okay, thank you very much, Emilia. And I just want to really express how nice it feels to see you all here in this room. And last year, when we were starting the retreat, because there was a totally hybrid or very virtual retreat last year, we were talking about also the areas, and I remember I made the point on the methodologies, how important are methodologies to keep the network alive and working together. And this year we definitely have seen a lot of confirmation on this. So, of course, peer learning is now recognized more and more. It's not only because of us, but it is becoming a really important way how to change institutions, how to get inside local government, understanding local government, and work with local governments. So this maybe is one of the positive points we have been receiving. Then the other point, we have, of course, a very big agenda. The global agenda is our agenda, but we localize. So, of course, we continue localizing all the time. And we have many, many remote places. So we still want to keep connected. And I would like to remember, for example, Nayat tells us, since over years, we have so many interested people in the local government that have a gap of capacity, a gap of finance. We need to reach out to them. And of course, the virtual era has been an opportunity in this sense to connect to this reality and to leave no one and no place behind. So the localizing, we have been continuing. We have been, of course, doing our modules, which was very, very strong this year. We have really been counting on all of you. So there are so many leaders I see here who have been coordinating and running agendas, and we have been really trying to construct the UCLG learning agenda from the peripheries or from the different regions in the world. And I think we have succeeded because we keep connected. So we really feel we can always nurture practices. You can see in the picture which I've chosen that we have so many realities. And of course, the narrative is always related to a street, to a bicycle, to a social service. So, of course, every local government has a lot of stories to tell and has a lot of experience, and our work is connecting them. And of course, first of all, I'm very happy that also our team has been strengthened. So my team, which is your team, we are really, I think, all over. And what I can see, it's not stopping in the World Secretariat. So we have really the feeling we have you all on board.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I think indeed this last point is very relevant, that you have been doing great efforts to ensure that learning is decentralized in UCLG, and that we use all the different resources that we have. And the resources are sitting here. It's not the books, or it's not us at the World Secretariat. You, the contacts, the members, the secretariats of committees, you are the resources. And one invitation that I have for the session that we are going to hold on the Learning Forum is to see how we can enhance those resources, and how we also make sure that those parts of the network that we cannot cover through big platforms, because the internet access is limited, or because there is a different working culture, that we can still reach out to them. So I think this is one of the issues that we still need to deal with. I'll stop here for now, Sarah, and I know that colleagues from the sections that have been working with you will intervene later on, and we will make sure that we invite you to take the floor. Jean-Baptiste, for the policy team, what has happened to us? Many changes.
Many changes, and when we started to think about how we would present to you what happens, it just didn't fit in a slide. I said, we're going to put a slide for it, it just didn't fit. So I thought that the best idea to start with was that notion of impact. And it's true, if we just look at the period from the second semester last year, there are 3 or 4 key international heads of state declarations that have quoted specifically our constituency, and that had never happened in the past in this context. Just very, very shortly, and this is something that we don't necessarily take time to celebrate. These are very...
We are not very good in celebrations in general.
And I wanted to take this 1 minute to say, well,
good.
The G20 acknowledged and supported intermediary cities and the SDG localization platform in the Heads of State Declaration. This never happened before. It's the G20 Heads of State Declaration. Last year, the HLPF supported the VLRs and the VNRs as a useful tool for development. This never happened before as well. At COP26, well, we had the Paris Agreement, but we have the multi-action level that was recognized, also never happened between Paris and Glasgow. And now we are in this very moment where we are transiting with this UN Common Agenda and the UN Task Force on the Future of Cities, where we are about to have that systemic link, that structural link with the UN system through a potential advisory board. And this has just happened between July and December last year. So the policy agenda is moving so fast that sometimes we don't even have time to digest what we achieved. And I just wanted to take this time to celebrate and just sum it up in just 1 minute. I think from policy now, we are in this transition between that decalogue that we were referring to and that pact for the future. So we are in this very moment where we are trying to sharpen and focus the policy agenda in those 3 pillars: the people, the planet, and the government. And I think, well, in this very session, we can explore a bit more. But if we can sum it up, I think with the people, we are now looking into this new generation of rights, the cultural rights. Accessibility has been very strong. We have been servicing many of the members here with accessibility. We have done an incredible job still going on the Lampedusa Charter. So on all this agenda of dignity and of generations, I think the people axis in this past year has been extremely strong. If we're looking at planets, of course, we are linking with the international agenda very much with the COPs, etc. But it's about protecting the commons and linking with care and ecological transformation. And for government, well, we are in the middle of the preparation of how do we report to the New Urban Agenda and what is the role of our constituency there. So I think we'll have time to deep dive a bit more into this, but I wanted to take time to make that link between, yes, we have achieved the Decalogue and we are moving towards a pact for the future.
I'm not sure we have achieved the Decalogue, but we have really identified how we can work towards achieving those objectives. And I also think that, and I really welcome that you have taken the time to signal not what we are advocating for, but what we have achieved actually, what has been recognized. Because I think that one of the very important changes that we have gone through in these last 5 years, which have been very transformative, is that we have managed to connect many of the knowledge that we had at policy level, at local level. They have linked up with the narrative at global level. The Sustainable Development Goals has been really instrumental to do that. It has really helped us with that narrative. But I think now we are kind of bypassing that, and I'm looking at colleagues of the UN over there, UNICEF and others. I don't know if you will agree, but I think we are champions now. We are pioneers. We are taking it further with this care agenda that we're trying to develop. And look, we know we are not there yet. But I think for the first time, what we are noticing in policy is that narrative and the policy making are really connecting from the local and the global. And as network, the task that I think we will need to do as United Cities and local governments, but also beyond United Cities, because as you know, we facilitate the Global Task Force. We are going to have our meeting of the Global Task Force, the annual meeting on Thursday. We need now to be able to answer, to be listened to. We have been asking to be listened to, and now we need to come with some concrete proposals. And we have many, but I think we need to structure them. So hopefully by the end of this retreat, we will find some answers around that. How do those things look like, right? Because the systems are starting to listen, as Jean-Baptiste was saying. So allow me to go to Edgardo now around the research team, the highlights for us.
Thank you, Emilia. It is a pleasure to be again with all of you here after a few years, seeing you only by Zoom. And let me first of all introduce that what changed in the research approach that is feeding the UCLG agenda in different areas. First of all, the agenda of research growth in the last 2-3 years. We moved from, as probably you all of you know, I was the gold guy. That means
you're still the gold guy.
Yes. Nevertheless, we enhance and we widen the research agenda. Now we are moving not only on the research on the goal report, I will come back to that, but also we are still facilitating the report to the HLPF every year that the global movement through the Global Task Force is presenting to the UN. And also supporting this effort to prepare this report, we launched from 2020 the initiative to develop voluntary subnational reviews, and many of you know about what we are talking about. And tomorrow morning at 11:30, we will have a session dedicated to the voluntary subnational reports in particular. Then we work with the London School of Economic and Metropolis. Here is Octavi from the Metropolitan section on the Emergency Governance Initiative. If you remember, this was one of our discussions in Tangier in the last personal meeting, and we take it over and we develop in the last 2 years this Emergency Governance Initiative that was publishing policy papers, analytic papers on how we are dealing with these emergency issues, what is the concept of complex emergency that is very different, but catastrophic, again, regular disasters that we are facing. This idea of complex emergencies, how we face the governance of that, what does imply for the management of public services, how we are financing this emergency initiative, and what are the lessons, and the next one will be on democratizing the management of these emergencies. And what are the lessons that we can learn facing the increasing pressure that disasters, that emergencies are bringing to our local governance. And coming back to the Goal 6 report, I think this year, the Goal 6 report that will be launching, as you know, in our next Congress in Daejeon, will be a very breaking approach and disruptive approach. We were working with that with a very open mind, developing different networks and initiatives with the academia, with the main network of civil society, with the majority of the commission and committee of UCLG. Then we try to bring some introduction of new ideas. What does mean commoning? What does mean renaturing? What does mean caring in a city particularly? What does mean connecting? What does mean democratizing in a city as pathways to equality? And this will bring a new approach to our agenda, and our hope is based on this research, on this open mind, thinking about this agenda, how they will fit in the Pact for the Future in the next coming months, and bring us to a new stage in our development and our reflection on the global agendas.
Yes, I think that what you were saying, I think is very visible for our partners, in the sense that we are not producing just one research piece, after 3 years. So in terms of outcomes, deliverables is very visible. But what is harder to show is the connection between the different work areas. And that's why in that main screen over there, and I don't know if the people at home get to see it or not, we have the connect, how the work that we do connects the power of we meet, we learn, we research, with how we present it to the world, with the different work areas, and how they are going to be delivering as well in Daejeon. What that slide doesn't show is that they are also connected vertically. And I think that is extremely important, that the research agenda is feeding into the conversations with the town halls and vice versa, that we also ensure that that conversation fits into the policy. It's not that it did not exist. Of course it did. But I think we have found a much more intertwined way to do this. And we have a very powerful narrative that we have been developing together, because COVID has allowed us to actually demonstrate empirically, I always say. You could even touch it, how relevant inequality has been in how our cities have been shaped, right? So I think this is extremely important, and there is maybe one of the missing tasks that we still need to develop, or those things where we would like to go further, is to make sure that our relationship with academia, but also with researchers around the world, continues in partnership beyond the specific research product that we are doing, which is something that happens, but we hope that will happen more structurally, and hence that research forum that we aspire to deliver. So Carol, from a statutory perspective, everybody loves statutory affairs. It is what makes us tick, right? Elections, they're coming up, meetings, decision making. But what has been for you the most relevant change in this past period?
Merci Emilia. Je vais profiter qu'on a de l'interprétation simultanée pour rendre hommage à la diversité de notre réseau. Donc je m'exprimerai au moins en début en français. Alors moi c'est comme Jean-Baptiste, quand j'ai pensé à cette question, je me suis dit impossible de résumer en une diapositive, c'est juste impossible, donc on va même pas essayer. Et j'ai écouté la présentation de mes 3 collègues, et c'est vrai que je pense que dans les affaires statutaires, on rejoint beaucoup ce qu'ils ont dit en fait de connexion, consolidation et transformation. Je pense que ça a vraiment été les 3 temps forts de ces 2 dernières années finalement. Connexion, à l'évidence, quand on s'est tous retrouvés confinés, il a fallu très vite réagir, très vite s'adapter. J'ai failli dire faire une transition, mais en fait ça n'a même pas été une transition, parce que ça a été tellement rapide que ça a été une adaptation du jour au lendemain. Tout le monde connecté sur Zoom, il faut continuer, il faut organiser des réunions, il faut faire en sorte que les membres sentent qu'on est là, qu'on peut les accompagner. Donc je pense que ça a été la première grande priorité pour l'équipe des affaires statutaires, comme pour les autres équipes d'ailleurs du secrétariat mondial, parce que toutes les réunions n'étaient pas des réunions statutaires, bien évidemment. La consolidation, je crois que c'est toi qui l'as évoqué, Sarah, en parlant de tout le réseau de membres du forum d'apprentissage, etc. Pour les affaires statutaires, pareil, consolider ce sentiment d'appartenance au réseau, faire en sorte que les petits écrans de Zoom ne soient pas une barrière, mais bien une fenêtre ouverte pour qu'on puisse continuer à communiquer, à échanger. Et bien sûr, d'un point de vue plus strictement statutaire, faire en sorte que nos instances statutaires restent toujours aussi solides, ce qu'elles ont démontré d'ailleurs, aussi bien au niveau de la présidence que des instances statutaires elles-mêmes, comme le Conseil mondial ou le bureau exécutif. Faire en sorte que tout ça puisse continuer à fonctionner. Ça paraît un peu bête dit comme ça, mais c'est fondamental, bien sûr. Faire en sorte que le bureau exécutif puisse se réunir, même de façon 100% virtuelle, que les membres du bureau exécutif ou du Conseil mondial puissent prendre des décisions. Ce que tu évoquais, Emilia, c'est fondamental. Et bien sûr, le dernier point, cette transformation qu'on a vue, en fait, qu'on voit, qu'on expérimente depuis quelques mois, et je pense que cette semaine de séminaire annuel en est l'exemple. Cette transition-là, pour le coup, vers quelque chose d'hybride, qui finalement s'appuie à la fois sur nos anciennes réunions présentielles, mais ajoute cette composante virtuelle pour faire en sorte que tous les membres sentent qu'ils sont ici avec nous, qu'ils peuvent participer, interagir avec nous. Je pense que ça a vraiment été les grandes priorités de l'équipe statutaire.
Yeah, I agree with you very much, Carol. I also feel that the big effort that we're trying to make in putting all our decision making and our information in one single platform, UCLG Meets, is extremely relevant. I don't think that you are using it like you should. By the end of the week, you will. But really, I think there are many possibilities yet. It's a space where we can really dialogue, but where we can also use as a repository indeed. And for the first time in many years since our existence, if you want to see what the papers of an executive bureau years ago said, you can find it in one go. If you are a member of the bureau, you have that access. If you're not a member, you don't. You have access to other things. But I think that is extremely relevant. And our hope is that the sections, but also the committees, the fora, the working groups, will be using it more. I think it's part of that transformation that we're looking for. I'm going to head to the second question. And I'm going to ask you to be a little bit shorter on that, because I know that you want other colleagues to take the floor as well around this question. And I will start with you again, Carol. What has the CARE agenda meant for the work that you are doing? How is this notion of CARE influencing the work that you do? And I'm going to go to you, Xavi. You're working with Carol, and I want you to give some feedback on that. I'm going to be warning some people so that you don't. I don't catch you by surprise. Carol.
Bueno, quizás podemos empezar con Xavi, porque creo que
empezamos con Xavi.
Tiene un enfoque
Xavi
personal.
No lo he hecho yo, lo ha hecho ella. A ver, te pongo yo el micrófono, no te preocupes.
Bueno, muchos me conoceréis en mi etapa anterior de UCLG. Yo dejé CGLU antes de la pandemia, me marché a trabajar en una organización afín y claro, todos nos hemos tenido que adaptar en mayor o menor medida con la llegada de la pandemia. Han habido desafíos logísticos, han habido desafíos técnicos y por supuesto han tenido que haber desafíos emocionales y todos nos hemos tenido que adaptar como hemos podido. Sí que es verdad que viéndolo desde la distancia, la velocidad meteórica con la que CGLU se adaptó con los Life Learning Experiences en abril, realmente desde fuera se vio con cierto asombro. Y también con el lanzamiento de la plataforma UCLG Meets, que con un clic tienes acceso a muchísimo contenido. Entonces, ahora estoy en una segunda etapa aquí y quizá es ahora cuando he empezado a ver que el hilo conductor de todo esto es el cuidado a los miembros, es el cuidado a los socios, es el cuidarnos entre todos los que estamos aquí. Y es este cuidado el que nos mueve y el que nos motiva para, yo creo, dar lo mejor de nosotros mismos cada día. Yo creo que es un poco esto.
Bueno, me gusta esa respuesta. No es fácil cuidarse, no es fácil cuidar, pero lo estamos intentando. Me encanta que lo experimentes así. Good choice, Carol, to give Xavi the floor first. You want to add anything?
Sí, no, es solo porque efectivamente este hilo conductor ha sido efectivamente tan importante y simplemente retomar lo que tú dijiste en tu presentación, ¿no? Del servicio al cuidado. Creo que simplemente añadir esto ha sido fundamental para el equipo estatutario, para brindar este concepto de cuidado a los miembros y a los socios.
We got to talk to many more people than we used to, actually.
Muchísimos más.
And I feel very much part of the statutory team. I don't know, it's because I emanated from there. But I have come to realize that we used to talk to the governing bodies a lot. We still do. But now we talk to many more people. And I think that changes the perspective of how they see you, what they expect from the organization. And we have also come to have a different type of contact. And it's very strange because in this cold environment of the little windows, the little perfect square windows, like over there I see Elena, I see Serafín, I see Jorge. From those little windows, we have been getting a lot of human response as well. And we have come to know a lot from each other because we've been meeting much more often than we used to. And I think that has permeated the way that we are approaching our narrative, the policy that we are making, and that we have come to understand probably better the people that we serve, which are the mayors, the governors, the councillors. Because when they go to the streets, they see all these people that want things from them, and we have come to experience what that feels like a little bit in the day-to-day with the pandemic. So thank you very much, colleagues, for those inputs. Sarah, from your perspective, how is care impacting on the agenda of our learning team?
Yeah, I think in the same way as Carol, our care was very much towards the members. So we have done a lot of coaching and preparation because we want to empower our leaders in the different angles of the networks. And beside this, we also have seen that different people need different ways of knowledge and ways of preparation. So we have done a completely new service, which we had not had before. And actually, it was born a little bit out of the COVID, the Learning with UCLG, which is also a platform, just as Carol says. And today we have 1,000, it's not followers, because all the people in the platform have done
1,000
courses.
learners. Yes.
So we have, and these learners are all personally connected. This is so amazing because we have taken the content, which of course is not our content. The localizing is really a group achievement. I think we have done now 5 years goals and reports and policy documents, and we have taken all this to make it simple, to translate it into formats which are attractive for new members, for new associations, for new cities, for new practitioners. Of course, this has reached out, and we have entered our networking activities much more in the territories. So I think this is creating a very, very impressive impact. For example, you all know Danny, the mayor of Danny, is always with us in the network, and his staff attended localizing online courses, which we are doing, rolling out with the Deputation, with Provincial Council. They did such an original localization that they won awards, the Guangzhou Awards. All of a sudden we saw, wow, they just so articulated, and they are so empowered and so energetic to young women. So this is a gift which would never have been discovered if we would not be forced to this virtualization. I think the possibility of doing it bottom up, also in the virtual era, is much more strong than probably one would see if I was only a teacher or professor which has to deliver a certain content. Of course, I would pack it and get it down to the territory. But it's the same in the virtual era. The same is happening. Localization means empowerment, and so we get a lot back from our members and from our territories. And this is, of course, now with all the agendas. We also have angles, for example, the committees who develop MOOCs, who develop online courses, massive pieces, which was not possible before, and this is enriching the network a lot.
Yeah, what you're saying about making sure that the bottom up, you know, that we don't only produce materials from this global perspective, which is very useful, peer learning is extremely relevant. So, but we have been able, I think, to enhance the way that we have been learning from the bottom up and to visualize some of these initiatives. We will be seeing that later in the Local for Action hubs as we wrap up this part of today, and we let you go off. Be patient. A few more things that we want to share with you. But the Local for Action hubs are particularly this. And I like a lot how the Local for Action hubs also get connected with the learning agenda. They get connected with the research agenda, appearing in our research products as cases that are worth mentioning. I think that is also extremely important. A very last word from you, Sarah. You thought about something?
On that, I think the Local for Action Hub, definitely we are very happy to see so many leaders of the Local for Action Hub, and the same idea. Decentralize the power and nurture the local energy, but also it is positive probably that we have been able to work very close together. First, of course, with the people, because Maria Alejandra is in the learning team and Local Action Hub team, but also because we were all together. So we were really looking on the same objective, and this has changed our way of working. No? We are not traveling that much. We check much more what every angle is doing, so we keep connected and support policy, research, or statutories.
Yeah, that's also something that we don't usually talk about, how we get organized and how we are more organized in circles now than in different boxes, and how there are connectors between one and the other team, and that is making it easier to achieve this kind of transversal type of product that you are presenting today, but also transversal vision, I think. Edgardo, from your perspective, CARE, and I know that you wanted a colleague as well to jump in here.
Muchas gracias, Emilia. Si me permite, creo que para el grupo de research en particular, el tema de caring emerge como algo natural. Es decir, en el momento en que todas las ciudades, todos los gobiernos locales estaban preocupados cómo responder a la emergencia, fue el momento en que arrancamos prácticamente al mismo tiempo Goal 6 sobre inequalities, Emerging Local Government Reporting and HLPF, que se basó justamente en la respuesta al COVID-19, el tema de canning emergió muy fuerte. Entonces, para nosotros fue casi natural integrarlo como un tema central. Y además muchas ciudades se lo apropiaron con el título Caring Cities, o The Cities That Care, o Local Governments That Care. Entonces fue un tema central para él. Y me gustaría así compartir la palabra con alguno de mis colegas, Ainara, para que introduzca un poco el concepto.
Voy.
So it's really a pleasure to be with all of you here today, and thank you, Edgardo, thank you, Emilia. And actually, when I think about caring, I think that Sara said something that I found really inspiring, because for us, I think that caring has created these virtuous cycles, this virtuous circle, as you were saying, Emilia, also in the way that we work, in the way that we are approaching every single one of our work priorities. And for instance, just as Edgardo was mentioning before, caring is one of the pathways for local and regional governments to advance urban and territorial equality that the Goal 6 report is proposing. And it's not only about receiving care and providing care for other people in these very difficult times, which of course is hugely important, but it's also a critical dimension of local governance and the way that we are thinking about equality and what this means in terms of protecting those that care for us, that are usually women, racialized people, people that live in the margins, and what these implications this have in terms of ensuring that everybody has access to a dignified urban life. And then, of course, for our work, for our localization work, caring is simply an essential dimension of leaving no one behind. And actually this year, the Global Task Force's report to the HLPF is going to be exploring SDG 5 on gender equality. And I think that again, this is going to be a very important entry point for promoting more virtuous circles in terms of not only compiling and showcasing the initiatives that our constituency is putting forward in terms of advancing gender equality, but also in terms of further synchronizing with the very powerful work of our feminist leadership. And in terms of governing complex emergencies, we're seeing how the notion of care is emerging super powerfully in terms of governance by empathy. This is a completely new change of paradigm, and care is simply at the heart of it all. And also in terms of the work that we have done in terms of service provision, how this has entailed a change in the culture of what it means to care for people by ensuring that they have access to public services that are universal, that are affordable, that are of quality, and how this indeed means to care for other people. So Emilia, I think that the only answer is how has it permeated our work in a very radical way?
Radicalization, I like that. Yeah, and we'll talk about that more on Thursday because we have the feminist agenda coming up. And yes, we need to do some work there. I agree very much that it came very naturally, actually. All these radical ideas that we have, which at the end of the day are only transformational ideas, they just came naturally. Because of the experience that we were going through, because of all the work that we had done before. We are not discovering things in a vacuum. The cities have been doing this for many, many years, but I think now we have found a way to be able to tell these things that resonates for people, that people understand, impacting in their daily lives, right? And I think that is something that we need to hold on to, and that will give us an advantage to defend the political space of local and regional governments as safeguarding aspirations of the communities, which is the type of space that we want to defend before the United Nations. And I'm going back to you, Jean-Baptiste, because you were mentioning this very important exercise that we are doing. We will look at it more in detail on Thursday during the annual meeting of the Global Task Force. Indeed, the Secretary General of the United Nations has mandated a group which we call the United Nations Global Task Force for the Future of Cities, where we, the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments, also have a seat for discussion to shape an advisory group of local and regional governments. And they are looking at how to transform the multilateral system into a multi-stakeholder multilateral system. And the thing is, for us, that is already a little bit old. We are further than that. Multi-stakeholder might not be enough. And I think we are trying to create this consciousness of how important the political space is and how relevant it is to acknowledge a different sphere of government in this kind of exercise. And that is what local and regional governments need to represent. So that we have been able to show this so empirically, and that our arguments are resonating. How are you feeling that in the policy environment, beyond the cases that you shared with us before?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what I've loved with the previous interventions is that we talked about policy in all the departments. I mean, what we are working from the policy was all connected from what you said. And it's also been very natural because, I mean, our first job is to voice your concerns, the concerns of the members, to voice them out to the UN or the international arena. So that care, and maybe we didn't call it care before, it's just because of the pandemic has forced us to use the word care, but I think was very much present. I think now we use care as our chapeau. So it embraces the full policy and advocacy strategy. We care for people, we care for planet, we care for government. And Ainara was mentioning that we moved, for example, from a governance of proximity to a governance of empathy. I think we have also used care to sharpen this language in many other ways, to sharpen our narrative. We have moved from inclusion. We were using inclusion, we are moving to care. We were having equality, and we are shifting from equality to feminism. And last year, for example, we held two major forums, the World Forum on Intermediary Cities and the Forum of Regions. And I think this care narrative was very much present, and we use this as territories that care. So we see that in this policy agenda, we are moving to this, and we are using care towards the pact for the future. I think the challenge now is that I think we have this very much consolidated with the membership, is to voice it out, to support the common agenda, and to impact even further the processes, the international processes that we will have this year.
Yeah. We have done so many things, we sometimes forget some. The culture summit also took place, and I think that was a very critical piece for our care agenda, where new notions like circular culture were also put up there, and culture as the mortar of policies, of everything. After our leadership identified culture as the antidote of the negative effects of the pandemic, I think that is a very important component of anything we do in every of the axes. And I think that has permeated throughout our policy as well. A very quick last round where we are going to just very quickly talk about the future, and then short, and then we are going to the floor and see whether there are questions. I'm going to take something like 3 or 4 questions for my colleagues, and then we will go to the next segment, which is about beyond this wonderful vibe that we shared with you before. What is Daejeon going to be like, and where is your place in our Daejeon Congress? You will see it in a minute. So get ready for any questions that you have for my colleagues. Quick round. What is in the cards? What are the important things that are coming up for 22? A hard task in a minute. Edgardo, give it a try.
Aló. Yo diría que el grupo, el trabajo que estamos haciendo desde Research, ocupa un lugar muy privilegiado, porque nos permite pensar el tema de las desigualdades, el tema de la localización, el tema de las emergencias, todos son temas que están en el centro de nuestras agendas. Y repensarlo desde la perspectiva de cómo influye eso en la gobernanza local y nacional, frente a un sistema que está haciendo agua por todos lados, que entra en crisis. Nos vemos emerger diferentes formas de contestación, antisistemas, algunas de ellas, y cómo desde el nivel local podemos promover una visión abrevándonos, apoyándonos en lo que las reflexiones que desde la sociedad civil, de los movimientos cívicos, desde las diferentes experiencias de los gobiernos locales, se está alimentando en crear alternativas para pensar la desigualdad. Hablamos de commoning. ¿Qué significa eso de commoning? Lo vamos a discutir el viernes. Commoning, connecting, caring, porque esas son...
El miércoles ya empezamos.
En el town hall.
En el town hall.
Efectivamente. Pero, es decir, muchos de esos mensajes, esa navette, ese intercambio entre town halls y Equality Agenda, el Pact of the Future UCLG, dependen también de esta reflexión que estamos haciendo desde Gold, en cierta forma. Entonces, ¿cómo aparecen mensajes disruptivos que nos permiten renovar el discurso político, renovar el concepto de localización? ¿Cómo integrar, cómo los gobiernos locales se enfrentan a los debates, a los desafíos de las emergencias que estamos viviendo, pensando nuevas formas de gobernanza, que ella habló de empatía, pero también networking governance, es decir, cómo romper el concepto de vertical, horizontal, desde una nueva perspectiva. Todas esas dimensiones están apareciendo muy fuerte y vemos cómo ese cóctel va a contribuir a ese Pact for the Future y alimentar nuestra agenda en el futuro. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Edgardo. Pact for the Future, also very much high on the statutory agenda, of course, because it will be the governing bodies that are going to take decisions on that. But beyond that...
Sorry, we seem to have problems
yes, we are
with
dancing,
the mics today.
we are dancing with the microphones, yeah.
It's a new learning game.
Yeah.
So, in view of the Congress for the Statutory Affairs team, I think what's in store can actually be summed up in 2 words, which are electoral processes.
Yes, elections.
Elections, absolutely. You were mentioning it before, Emilia, but we like to think of the word Congress not only as an event, which it will be, obviously, and a big one and a successful one, but as a process. It takes months, and all the tracks involved can tell you the same thing. And I think that this is it for the coming months for the Statutory Affairs team, like really consolidate the we meet part of the power of we care, and really give it all for the electoral processes.
Yeah, it's more than elections. It's the renewal of the leadership, right? It's about the capacity that our network has to locally, nationally, regionally, and internationally create a structure that is representative. And it is complex and painful, but also extremely exciting and interesting. And it renews the voices that we have while it keeps some of the voices that we have known. There is always a very good, wise balance between renewal and continuity that we have, which is extremely important. And also new ideas that come up with this political leadership. So certainly a very exciting period, and nobody can deny that everybody enjoys these big gatherings of political leaders from all around the world coming together with ideas and trying to have a seat, to get a seat at that global table that we facilitate. So it is extremely exciting, and don't hesitate asking Carol, myself, any of the other team members how that goes, because it is a huge process where many of us are involved, and it's really interesting. Sarah, what is coming up this year for you in a nutshell? Get ready with your questions, by the way. I need to see hands.
First, I think we have to remind the global challenges are increasing. We hopefully get out of a pandemic. We are already in the middle of an economic crisis, and the climate crisis is just also there. So we paint it as a picture of clouds or waves, no? We are only in the small wave of the whole disasters that come up. So we need to, of course, be fast, act, and work all together, so to keep really this momentum of being connected. And I think for Denjon, content-wise, probably all this resilience agenda will be more and more strong. So we are really very happy and grateful. We have so much support in the network on this one. And on methodologies and our work as learning team, first, of course, I also have to announce, we will find a lot of learning sessions. Please attend them all, but in particular the Learning Forum. This is for constructing our own agenda. And where we go. So we have a big challenge because the practices, for example, Metropolis, Guangzhou, so many regional sections, they all get the practices. We have collected massively good experiences, and we need to show this is inspiring, but of course it's also under threat because we have, of course, a financial slowdown. I mean, Edgardo has already pointed this out, but we need to show what are the different pathways on the practical side. So for us, the point is to do a bit more this hands-on practice, knowledge management, and of course all this with a lot of massive online work we have ahead. And for example, Paula, who is here from FAMSI, she's just made this connection between this very big agenda. What do we do? What is a new economic we go for, and how do we deliver this and connect it to our members?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. I think there is also a very interesting exercise that we are due to do. You were saying, and we were talking about this not so long ago, do we need to develop many more tools? Do we need new materials? And we came to the conclusion that we probably had to ground the materials that we had and connect it to the other work areas as well. I think that will be very, very important in the work that we do. The other very relevant issue that I very much agree with you, that we have several crises that are piling up on each other, right? They are overlapping crises, and there is a peace crisis going on as well, which puts the world under threat. And I think there is a very important work that our movement needs to do in also voicing this kind of concern and voicing opinions on how we can get out of this crisis. And I know the political leadership is certainly looking at that, on what kind of opinions can we give and should we give that are constructive, right? And how can we make sure that our movement conquers back the space that we have had as peacemakers through local dialogue? And I think that is also part of the agenda that we will need to develop in the coming years. So thank you very much for that. Very difficult question for policy, right? Because the international agenda is exploding. What would you pick, Jean-Baptiste?
It's exploding, so we face that challenge of prioritizing in a way. But I think the idea of this week is also to use the strengths of the network to see who is best placed to be acting, supporting the full network. I think this year, obviously, the ecological agenda is extremely critical. We have a COP in Africa. We also have the celebration of the 50 years of sustainable human development in Stockholm, but also the biodiversity agenda, the water agenda, the resilience. All of this is coming just in a few months. And I think for us, it will be about guaranteeing the access to the global commons. I mean, this will be, I think, our challenge and linking up with what we are doing with the town hall as well on global commons and caring systems. Mm-hmm. I think this is very, very high in the agenda. But also the government part. I mean, we were referring to the structural relations with the UN. We will have to be keeping a very close look at how this evolves and how we can impact this. And including in there the new urban agenda. I mean, we are 6 years after Quito. and we have that duty as a constituency to report on achievements, but also on challenges. And in 2 months in New York, we will be having that high-level meeting, and the World Assembly will be convening. So I would leave it at that in such a nutshell, because I think this year we will be having over 15 UN processes or summit to cover. So we need to prioritize and to link it up also as much as possible with the Congress.
Yeah, I think what will be very challenging for us, and it's starting to resonate, but it's probably not in the place where it should be, is the link between local service provision and all of these agendas, and also how these global agendas and the access to the commons also entail a new understanding and probably a new generation of human rights, basically, and human rights that are not so attached to borders. We keep saying that this, what we talk about is not border tales. We will go back to that with our migration agenda on Thursday. But it is about how far we want to take this in terms of transformation. And I think you are absolutely right about the comments, but I think a new generation of human rights is certainly in the cards. We need to get people to come on board with human rights as they haven't done before, but I think there needs to be new things included in that vision. And I'm not naive, it's not simple, but we need to get there. So now, floor is open. I'm going there and then to you. Anna.
Thank you very much, Emilia, and thank you very much, everybody. I think this has been a very significant panel, yeah? And given that we are thinking in the future generations and in the breaking through for the future generation, and what Emilia just said, the overlapping crisis that we are experiencing in the world, and how do we influence from this UCLG strong, potent articulation to the policies and the political leaders. And we are talking about care as, I like what you said, I care as a chapeau. It's a hat that everything can be in there and nothing can be there. I mean, we need to go much more in deep in what we are thinking about that, yeah? And we are also saying that we need to have an approach that is more in the scope of associativism. Yeah? And that is, and I think that is, those are the new path together with this new approach to human rights. How in each one of the works you are leading, in each one, in policies, in learning, in research, in statutory, are you including this concept of feminism that is not only women's right, it's a new approach, a new scope to rights without discrimination? It's LGBTQ population, is all the men that are discriminating, not only women, because this conception of the patriarchal society.
It's also a non-binary approach to equality. It's hard for us to get there, but we will need to get there. Colleagues, you're going to have the opportunity to, one of you, answer to that question. It cannot be everybody because we would be here forever. This is Anna Falou. Anna Falou is a specialist on feminism, as you can imagine, and she's also our Ubuntu advisor. So introduce yourselves when I give you the floor. Madame Fatimetou, Madame la Présidente.
Merci, Emilia. Moi, j'ai deux commentaires, plutôt un commentaire et deux recommandations. Le commentaire, c'est que, Emilia, je te félicite vivement et je félicite ta belle équipe. Vous savez, moi, je suis une des personnes les plus anciennes parmi ces jeudis ici, parce que j'ai assisté à la création de ce jeudi en 2004, le congrès de Paris. Donc, je suis une des plus vieilles ici. Alors, et je sais que cette équipe, votre équipe, a toujours été fantastique. On a répondu présent à toutes les thématiques. On a répondu présent à toutes les situations. Droits de l'homme, catastrophes, partout, on a été partout. J'ai accompagné pas mal d'éléments parmi vous ici. Donc, c'est l'occasion pour moi vraiment de remercier vivement votre travail, remercier votre équipe, parce que vous avez été fantastique. Alors, j'aimerais bien dire aussi que l'assiduité, la persévérance, c'est ça qui fait la distinction de notre organisation. En un mot, je suis fière d'être membre de cette organisation. Alors, les deux recommandations maintenant. La première, c'est que nous devons, parce qu'on n'a pas cessé d'innover, on innove à chaque fois que l'occasion se présente. Donc, la recommandation, c'est qu'on doit nécessairement affirmer notre position, notre positionnement auprès des Nations Unies. Notre situation d'observateur doit être vraiment affirmée. Donc, nous devons mettre toute la force, un bon plaidoyer pour affirmer cette position-là. La deuxième recommandation, c'est que nous avons une commission permanente d'égalité genre. Il faut dire que cette commission a été un peu à la traîne. On veut bien la redynamiser parce que c'est l'occasion ou jamais. On a besoin quand même de mettre à l'avant cette problématique des gens qui est réellement une problématique posée dans tous les pays. Donc, et comme notre organisation a des ramifications partout, c'est l'occasion justement d'en parler. Merci.
Merci à vous. Un grand merci. I will take your question, Madame la Présidente, sur la commission d'égalité, parce que c'est important, on a des élections, on doit voir ça. I've got Neila from VNG International, and then I will go to the representative of Vienna, and then I will go to my colleague from Metropolis. And if I don't see any emergencies, I will start to close down this segment. Neila, please do take the floor. Those work, they should work.
It's working. It's working. Thanks a lot, Emilia. I really would like to join my dear friend Fatima to thank you for this pleasant setting. We really felt welcome, and definitely it's a good feeling to have that festive feeling after being really closed up in those windows. I like how you bring everything very positively, Emilia, but we're also trapped a little bit on our being alone but not lonely, and that's really important to mention. And really thank you for all the work you've done to bring us together. I would like just a question, and so maybe a little bit ask Jean-Baptiste at the policy level. We hear often lately that we should go back to normal, go back to normal. I would say we cannot go back to normal. Because going back to normal, we've seen in the epidemic, the vulnerable became more vulnerable, the excluded person became more excluded, and we cannot go back to normal. And I really think in all the effort that has been done so far, and for UCLG to be recognized as really an important entity, not to be missed in shaping policies in the world, that we should market in a way, a different way of being able to answer specific questions. As a practitioner, I'm just managing, designing programs with partners all over the world, and I see that is the question of what type of question we're answering. What can we answer? And in marketing, sometimes we should create demand, but we don't even have to create the demand. Demand is there. And the epidemic has shown that local governments, they're definitively not to be missed in any solution in policies and crisis. So the question that I would like to ask and to think along, how can we build a narrative where we are really able to suggest very concrete answers to specific questions? And for that, you just mentioned that, Emilia, how to go concrete and how to bring the narrative in a way to fill that space, which is ours. And in that, I think alliances are very important. And I think we have so many partners around the world. But I really do believe what Fatima too has mentioned about the United Nations is definitely a very strong ally for UCLG. And if we can bring that together, you mentioned migration. I'll just give an example of migration.
You need to be brief.
Yes. When it comes to migration, even the discussion around a role for local government sometimes is not really very recognized. It's as if it's so much far-stretched in thinking what local government can do while it does something. So this is what I would like to say. How can we bring solutions, concrete way to really fill in our role in the coming period?
I mean, you're being challenging with our colleagues. I feel we need another retreat to answer that question. But I will give it back to you, Jean-Baptiste. Let us see what we do with that one. Thank you very much, Neila. Very, very pertinent reflections, of course. Back to Vienna. Please do take the floor. See if that works. Yeah.
Yeah, it works. Thank you very much. It was really an inspiring panel.
Oui, c'est comme ça. Moi, j'ai trouvé bien ça. Aucun problème, non? Allez-y.
Okay, and I really I'm very pleased to listen to the subjects and policies that it was discussed now. You mentioned care, and with care, I really relate two subjects, to care and to be cared. Because we are in the cities, and especially I am coming from the city administration, we have to have the to care concept more in the mind as to be cared for our population. And it reminds me right holders and right providers in human rights concept. And of course, access to services and how we do design our services for the whole of the population. And of course, we can discuss a lot about the human rights-based approach because we listen to the colleague that she talked about feminism and just right to use the services without discrimination. It's very important, and it's the most important pillar of the human rights-based approach. And I guess it's very important to take the subject care, but maybe we could deepen this subject and go to policies that we have to consider again here. And since, again, I'm from the city administration, we talked about the administration of the cities and governance in the city. For us, city management is the just formal part of the city, like for politicians and for the city administration that we work. And then it comes to city coordinations. And city coordination or city cooperations, we take the role of the civil society in our work, because without civil society and the expertise that we receive from the civil society, even the work of politicians, it is not really make a big sense, and our work from the administration either. So it comes to city leadership, and city leadership is a cross-cutting subject that all of us, all of civil society, city administration, and politicians, we work together in order to make our cities livable for everybody. And finally, I'm very happy that, Emilia, you just mentioned again human rights, because whatever that we do really in cities, and even this retreat, without taking human rights as background, it cannot function. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And we will be able to explore and to go further on this rights-based approach and the implication of cities in human rights in our session on Wednesday. We have a session specifically on that. So I really welcome those comments. I'm going to Octavi and then to Thomas George from UNICEF, and we're closing here, going back to the panel for very quick reactions. Octavi.
Thank you, Emilia. Good afternoon, everybody. It was 2 years ago when we met in Tangiers, and it was the last time for many people we met, so today is the first time we met in person. And you said something at the beginning. I went to 2 points in my intervention. One is related to the contents and approach of our work, and the other more is about the practical way and how we work together. On the contents and approach, I think you said at the beginning, we had this dilemma in Tangiers. when we wanted to look at the work of if it was about governance, about inequalities, and we have understood after these 2 years of pandemic is that they're both hand by hand. It's not one or the other, but governance is linked to inequalities and inequalities is linked to governance. And we're discovering as well that the governance, local governance, it was understood at the beginning, has completely shifted. The models of governance, local governments, even the model of structures of different tiers of governance is evolving. And we have realized what's expected by citizens from local governments, what's expected for tiers of government, what's expected for local governments. So there's huge work to be developed. And I think the work we have carried out with you and the London School of Economics on the emergency governance initiative shows that there's a shift in the models of governance, and this is something I think UCLG should take the lead, and also the sections. And then the issue of inequalities. The pandemic has deepened the inequalities we already knew about, and it has introduced new inequalities, so we should be, I think it's two topics that should be overarching and framing our work on the coming years. And in on the practical side, it's more, well, we don't have the time because I wanted to ask all of them. With Emilia, we talk quite often and we exchange views on everything, but we don't have the opportunity to talk to the team. To colleagues. And my question, maybe it will be answered throughout the week, is you have talked about the way, and you, Emilia, has also talked about the changes that you have introduced in the way you work. We work, I think I was feeling I was feeling quite close to you because it was the same in Metropolis. We have restructured the team, we have restructured the way we work, more working in circles, interconnecting the work. I mean, the slide that you showed at the beginning has made us to understand the connections and the links between all the work you carry out. But then my question was more in relation with the sections. Do you have a feeling that in these 2 years there has been a shift in the way you work with the sections and how the sections work with you? Not only at the level of Secretary Generals and more on the programs, but on an everyday basis. And also, which are the expectations for the future in order to have a further impact?
Well, thank you very much for those questions. Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you, Emilia. I'll be brief. I just wanted to mention in the beginning itself that myself personally and our organization, we highly we really highly, I mean, I'm not getting the right word. We respect the role which can be played by local governments. And in 150 countries, UNICEF works with local governments supporting issues for children. So that's one. And thank you for bringing in the concept of care, which encompasses efficiency with the human face. You also spoke about the 3 C challenges: COVID, climate change, and conflict. And that's really driving the world crazy as of now. I want to bring in another C into your equation, that is children. Okay? In most developed countries, 30% of local government's population will be children. In the developing world, it's 40%, 50%. In Africa, in some places, even 60%. We have 350 million children living in slums. And according to UNICEF estimates, another 150 million children have been added to this pool of poverty. So we are talking about 500 million children living in poverty. How can UCLG, through its care agenda, focus also on children? And children are constituents who do not have a political voice, even in local governance. I'm talking about 0 to 18. So my question is to all the panelists and to UCLG leadership and to local governments, what can you do and how can we support you? Over.
Also a very small question, very easy to answer. The world has not found that solution. No, but thank you very much, Thomas. I'm just joking. Thank you very much for bringing that other C to the equation. And I think it's something that we might start to confirm throughout the week, because we have been discussing it in the past, but maybe throughout the week we find some answers for that, and my colleagues might have initial ideas. And now I have a problem, because of course I see 2 hands raised, and really I'm not giving any more hands after these 2. Of course it's United Nations again, and my dear colleague David Jackson, and if we say we are multilateralists at heart, we cannot say no to him. So go ahead, David. And then I've got my treasurer up there, the mayor of Kitchener, online that also would like to take the floor. So production colleagues, do get ready. We are going to get feedback from the Mayor of Kitchener. The floor is yours, David.
Thank you so much, Emilia. So I'm going to be very brief, and it's a question to everybody in the room, and it's quite a strategic, a geopolitical question, if you like. You've mentioned human rights. You've mentioned decentralization. We've heard about children. Are we ready? Is this network ready? Because if one looks around the world and one looks at what is happening in terms of democracy, in terms of governance, in terms of global governance, in terms of the way that finance is organized, that we're working on, one can see, and I say this on a personal basis, but as somebody who works at the UN, one can see the nation-state system not necessarily delivering on the issues that you have raised. This network will therefore become more important. Are you ready for that responsibility, given the issues you've raised? That's what I wanted to pose. Thank you.
Are we ready for the responsibility? I think I'm going to let the Mayor of Kitchener answer that. Our treasurer. I mean, you are the political leader. Let us see, Barry, because I could say yes, but it's risky. Nobody elected me. So I'm going back to you, treasurer, and please feel free to pose your question and give a try to answer, David, and see what happens. I am inviting the room. I know what I would answer. Barry.
For sure. Thanks a million, Emilia. And let me be absolutely clear. The answer is an unequivocal yes, that every single person in the room and every single representative of local and regional governments around the planet are ready and able. And in fact, I would argue that the last 2 years of the pandemic have shown that we're more than able. We're more than ready. In fact, we've proven that we can do it, and we will continue to do it. Emilia, thank you for giving me a moment to say a few words. First of all, it is so awesome to see everyone together in person. I was watching in the beginning as people were hugging each other again, and all those things that are so important as part of the UCLG family. And I want to give a shout out to my Canadian colleague, Joanne Vanderheyden, the FCM president, who I know is in the room. I'll be joining you on Wednesday. And a shout out to the staff who have just done such an incredible job putting this together. So many great points that have been made, but I really want to just touch on the 3 C's or the 4 C's, because I think those are extremely important. And one of the issues that I think we don't talk about enough, quite frankly, as local government leaders, is what in particular the last 2 years has meant for people of all ages in terms of mental health. But it isn't just the issue of COVID. In fact, when you start thinking about the stress that young people are feeling around climate change, when we're hearing about the kind of stress that's happening about the potential of conflict in Ukraine, and Emilia, thank you for raising that earlier in terms of the importance of peace. I think there's so much that we need to do, but we need to also focus on that to a certain degree, because it will have some profound impacts for the next while, particularly amongst our young people, and we're going to need to focus on that in addition to all of the great points that colleagues have made today. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in person on Wednesday.
We look forward to welcoming you, Barry. Thank you very much for being with us online as well. I like that you make that effort, because this is that very day where most of the team is going to be presenting. During the next days, you will see the team facilitating, but not necessarily presenting our own perspective. So thank you very much for joining us, Mayor, and see you on Wednesday. Well, you have addressed a part of, some of the questions that we got, and I want to go back to my colleagues. And I would like to go with the sections question to you, Jean-Baptiste, because we have a mechanism now, a track that we are implementing. And so how do you see that work with the sections being enhanced and also contributing to our shifting narrative, etc.? So can you share a bit? It's a good introduction for tomorrow.
It's a good introduction for tomorrow, and it's and you have many ways for the sections to be involved, and this is already happening in many ways. I'm thinking about how ASPAC is involved in resilience, how MEWA is involved on migration, how Latin America is involved in climate change, etc. But it's true that in 2019 we created that assembly track that gives you the ownership of shaping those policy priorities through concrete recommendations, a work of 4 or 5 months, and then shape the agenda of the organization. I mean, our hope is that this could be a permanent track. Maybe UCLG Meets could be a useful tool, a permanent way of involving you in a regular way, and not only when we work towards the Congress and that we shape that policy agenda. So I think tomorrow is a good moment to actually discuss this. We have this afternoon session of 2 hours where the sections can already present what they prioritize and what they want the organization to work on.
Yeah.
And yes, the task force is as well a very useful tool, because with the task force we work on the message, but we also impact the international agenda.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Yeah, I would add that the consultations that we are trying to do, for instance, on some of the policy issues like Lampedusa, etc., are extremely important for us, and I think it can really permeate in your own policy processes. I have certainly seen it in the work that we're doing together with Metropolitan Governance, but I can see it also in the work that we're doing with UCLG Africa, and the role that is going to have in Afri-Cities, this whole agenda. And I see localization taking such a big impact in MEWA, for instance. So it is happening, but we need to articulate it better, and I think the assembly track is probably one of those tools. I would like to go to you, Sarah, on the question that our colleague Neila raised on how can we get to practical things, and I think in many of our discussions, the learning team brings the practicality to the table and being pragmatic, and how to make sure that these are tools that our members can use. So a quick comeback on that, and maybe the beginning of a conversation with Naila and others. And then I would like to talk about feminisms and how do we bring it in the different parts of the work. Maybe, Edgardo, some thoughts on this report that we are preparing on SDG 5. And Carol, if you want to come back to Fatimetu on the issue of the Standing Committee on Gender Equality, that would be great. So, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Emilia. Definitely, I think, as Barry said, we are ready because we have leaders that are ready, and we have a lot of stories and a lot of evidence to show. So for us, of course, it is when we hear the human rights, the gender, the what and the narrative, what we call narrative, is often messages which are important, underlined, confirmed, and of course they are really in the stream. But then we need to translate it into feasible activities. So the impact on the ground in a municipality, how does this look like and how is this shaped? And this requires for the network, it's of course a certain stress, because we cannot, for example, when we are now doing a mock on migration, and we have an amazing wealth of knowledge, but the practical experience, how a city has resolved identity cards or access to labor, these practical experiences are the ones who are most clear to be implemented and to multiplied. When we talk to a mayor, a councillor that has a certain problem, because of course they all will agree on the narrative. So the narrative is a filter which is very important, and of course our advocacy messages have been really made a lot of progress and are very, very clear. But we need to see how this then later is translated into action, into a planning, into an engineering project, whatever. And there is the point of the sections, which I think they help a lot because they give us a different perspectives. So we need to know how limited is the activity of an intermediary city in Zambia. because we have to think about them. So the empathy, as you were saying before, this is important because you have to imagine, be a counselor, and then what can I do in order to do this feminist future or my peace agenda? And there, the inspiration between the regions is much more than we probably had expected. I think this is also all our dialogues, which we have been going through in the last 2 years. They showed that all the territories, villages, intermediary cities, small, big, they all can inspire each other if the narrative is focused, and of course if we always put the practical way, who, which department, which finance, which partner is helping out. And yeah, of course we are very open to talk to Naila and to all the other colleagues about this.
Thank you very much. It is basically about this peer learning and transforming it into learning processes. Edgardo, on how we are including this feminist perspective in the work that we do, well, in particular in your area. And we'll try to answer from other perspectives later in the week.
Thank you very much, Milia. I think we are enhancing our concept, our way we see, for example, for accessing to new urban rights, enhancing access to public services, creating new alternative models of economic developments of social economy and integrating informal sector. All these areas are permeated by the feminist agenda, with a new leadership, with a way to see how more inclusive, more integrative, more cohesive could be the building of our societies, in particular our cities or territories. But these complex variables, how we build a new agenda that we much more inclusive, just, fair, in this and sustainable, it's a lot of variables. And for us, one of the key dimensions that emerging from our research that we will not achieve it if we will not widen the local alliance to be supporting these alternative pathways to development and to inequalities. And this is critical. We can build very much inspiring messages. We can build new ideas, disruptive approach. And this is in part fit by the initiative, by the experience from the local civil society communities and partners. And this is at the center of what we are trying to argument. We need to, if we want to change the multilateral system, if we want to change the governance bottom-up, we need to widen the alliance with civil society, with local stakeholders and communities.
Thank you very much. It's something that I certainly identify with, but I always get very, and this is something that we need to discuss in our session on feminism, because there is this continuous argument that that messages are only messages is not one that has serviced some of the transformations. I think that social utopias have been useful in shifting paradigms. What we cannot do it is alone, and I think that is why it's important to build it with research, with cases, with policy making. But narratives are transformational, and you need to start with a vision to get to a policy. It doesn't work the other way around. And so I am fierce in trying to defend this notion in particular about feminism, because the stark reality is that we are facing a kind of violence and inequality against women that is no longer acceptable in any way or form. So I think we need to be very, very determined to address this. But it's certainly something that we need to carry out throughout all the work areas. And I very much agree that that we need to demonstrate, give content, and gather data. So, Carol, just to wrap up on this, an issue that President Abdel Malik brought up about our standing committee on gender equality.
Oui, tout à fait. Je vais adresser votre question, Madame la Présidente. Donc, dans les processus électoraux que nous avons et que nous allons lancer cette année, Juste après le séminaire, nous allons lancer des appels mondiaux pour renouveler la présidence de CGLU, la trésorerie et la présidence de la commission permanente pour l'égalité des genres de CGLU. Donc ce sera effectivement une bonne occasion de remettre la visibilité sur cette commission, comme vous le soulignez.
Absolutely, and one thing that I would like to add in this respect is that the Standing Committee on Gender Equality had the main task has been to monitor women equality within the organization, and that it has been UCLG Women, the broader network, that has been advancing the notion of feminism and etc. And I think that the time has come now for the political leadership of UCLG to see how this needs to evolve and how we can enhance these instruments in the organization that have served a purpose, but I think they need to go further now. Yes, the floor is yours.
Emilia, j'aimerais bien rappeler que quand même la commission permanente était au départ une commission thématique. Et c'est grâce au plaidoyer des femmes africaines qu'elle est devenue commission permanente. Il faut quand même rappeler ça, c'est important. Merci.
Je me souviens bien. Oui, j'étais là, à Rabat, on a fait tout ça. Oui, on a réussi. Non, mais c'est très important hein, de penser comme ça. Et je pense que c'est le moment maintenant hein, de transformer l'outil, je dirais, hein, parce que c'était un outil très, très important. Mais c'est le moment. Look, I have been a terrible facilitator. We are really over time in every single way you can imagine. And we still have one more segment to go. The advantage is that I think that we can do a quick next segment because I'm sure you all want to see the structure of the World Congress. I think it's useful. For the rest of the week. And we want to have a quick conversation with the local for action hubs that are here. Some of them are online. So I'm going to ask those that are online to be with us for a little bit longer. And then we will start the program that we have only for the in-person participants, so our learning games, etc., with 15 to 20 minutes delay. But it's early, and this is Barcelona, and the night is young, so we can do it. And first, a round of applause for my colleagues, who are always a delight, and they have been great today. Thank you very much. We are already getting in the mood for the yawn again. Let's go to the yawn. Okay, colleagues, I am going to ask you a little bit more of your patience to go to the presentation of the structure of our Congress. And I have with us the coordinator of the Congress, Maria Alejandra. She is trying to translate all the experience that we have and all the deliverables that we have been presenting to you in a structure that is useful for us, that is digestible in a short period of time, that we are all going to be in Korea, and that includes everybody in the organization. So, Maria Alejandra, in a nutshell, the Congress.
Hola. Hola, Emilia, gracias. Yo estoy súper contenta de estar aquí, aparte porque
porque antes estuve allí y ahora estoy aquí, así que para mí es un momento muy especial, pero también es un momento muy especial porque es el año del Congreso y el año del Congreso trabajamos de una manera también muy especial. No quiere decir que los otros años no trabajemos de manera especial, pero esto es un proceso, Carol lo decía muy bien, es un proceso en el que estamos trabajando todos y todas y en el que ustedes van a ser parte, como también lo decías tú. Entonces, pues quería un poco mostrarles cómo ha sido nuestro trabajo. Va a tener mucho que ver con lo que hemos estado hablando ahora, con lo que Emilia comentaba de esta narrativa del Power of We, con lo que comentaban nuestros colegas que estaban aquí con nosotros, de qué hacemos cada uno, entonces, y cómo se traduce eso a llevarlo a este congreso que es un milestone, ¿no? Que es este momento donde nos reunimos, pero hacemos un montón de otras cosas. Así que, como pues pueden ver, las personas también que están en casa, vamos a ver los diferentes tracks de este congreso que se refieren a algo que nosotros ya habíamos visto en Durban. No es una cosa tan lejana, pero es otra clase de trabajo porque ya estamos andando la máquina, ¿no? Como solemos decir. Entonces, el primer track tiene que ver con algo que nosotros hacemos, que es nos reunimos, ¿no? Este primer track es esto. Nosotros nos reunimos, UCLG meets, y tiene que ver con esa sensación que tenemos ahora, con ese latido que decías tú, ¿no? De estar juntos, de construir juntos. ¿Qué es importante de este track estatutario? Que es el track que le da, como que valida también, ¿no? La gobernanza interna que tenemos nosotros en CGLU. Y ahí tenemos evidentemente las reuniones del Comité Financiero, las reuniones del Comité de Asuntos Estatutarios, las reuniones también de la Asamblea General, las reuniones del World Council. Creo que no sé si me estoy dejando alguna, pero
algunas se quedan por ahí, pero they get the picture.
Exactamente, pues bueno, mírate, yo me traje mi chuleta por si acaso, pero el Consejo Mundial de la Asamblea General, me faltaba uno que es muy importante, se llama el Buró Ejecutivo, y evidentemente también los caucuses, que es donde ustedes también, los que son partes evidentemente de las secciones, se reúnen. ¿Qué sacamos de aquí? Sacamos nuestra membresía renovada, sacamos, aparte de todo, esa aprobación de nuestro plan de trabajo, esa aprobación del Pacto para el Futuro, que es como, evidentemente, es muy importante. Pasamos a nuestro segundo track, que tiene que ver con lo que hacemos nosotros. Hacemos incidencia política, queremos que nos escuchen. Jean-Baptiste estaba hablando precisamente de esto, ¿no? De Listen to Cities, como nosotros, este es nuestro eslogan cuando nos presentamos nosotros ante la comunidad internacional. Y en este Assembly Track, que él lo estaba comentando bien, son las secciones regionales las que son protagonistas, son los gobiernos regionales y locales los que están en la silla del conductor o la conductora, ¿no? Del carro. Entonces, aquí, ¿qué se va a hacer? Es un proceso que ya empezó, donde las diferentes secciones están elaborando documentos de posición con prioridades, pero no solamente prioridades, sino desafíos y también soluciones. ¿Y eso qué hace? Que también va a nutrir nuestro trabajo y va a nutrir todo lo que nosotros hacemos para tener esas sensibilidades geográficas que son tan importantes para nuestro trabajo. Seguimos entonces con el siguiente track, que es nosotros escuchamos. Nosotros somos escuchados, pero nosotros también escuchamos. Y es lo que hemos estado haciendo con este proceso, que como ustedes bien saben también ya comenzó. El proceso del Town Hall, lo llamamos proceso del Town Hall, no decimos Town Hall Track, sino ya nos quedó a nosotros esa idea de que es el proceso del cabildo público, ¿no? Donde tenemos estos 4 Town Halls que comentaban, ¿no? Los bienes comunes, cultura y medio ambiente, gobierno y confianza, y como siempre se me va alguno.
Clima y cultura.
Clima y cultura. Entonces, esos 4 que aparte de todo nos acompañan, los caucuses que son feminismo, accesibilidad y juventud. ¿Qué es esto? Esto es, como bien decían, esta manera donde el movimiento se reúne, se ve, construye en conjunto con la sociedad civil organizada para ver nuestras prioridades, para oír estos otros matices, estas otras sensibilidades que son esenciales para nuestro trabajo. Entonces, es un proceso que ya comenzó y seguiremos. ¿Qué se produce de aquí? Los town halls producen, evidentemente, pues, documentos políticos y que son acompañados también de recomendaciones específicas que se dan por parte de los caucuses, ¿no? Para tener esos matices que quería decir anteriormente. ¿Cómo seguimos? Después de escuchar, nosotros actuamos. Y este es un track, un eje muy importante porque es el corazón del Congreso, ¿no? Este sí es el que también late, ¿no? Bastante, porque es donde todos, ya no solamente la parte de los miembros, sino sociedad civil, partners, todos juntos vamos a compartir, a inspirarnos por la acción local, a inspirarnos, a inspirar a otros, a ser creativos y a vernos, ¿no? Que también es muy importante. ¿Qué tenemos aquí? El networking hub donde nos reunimos.
And many sessions that anybody can propose. I think that what differentiates this from the rest of the tracks is the other tracks are policy-making processes. The other tracks are decision-making processes. The ones statutory decision-making process, but the assembly and the town hall, they are trying to influence also decision-making. What the Local for Action track is doing is inviting to act together and inviting to inspire the other processes. And this is a more flexible space where anyone can actually request to have a session and where we all meet together. I think that this is very important for all the partners that are in the room as well, because this is a space where you have the possibility to propose sessions. And in fact, the call for sessions is going to be published very, very soon.
Exacto, pues entonces es ese corazón, ¿no? Del Congreso. Nos vemos, creamos, nos contamos las historias, nos inspiramos. Eso es nuestro Local for Action Track. También aquí está incluido nuestra parte del conocimiento local, el Learning Forum, el Research Forum, y cómo interactuamos y traemos, ¿no? Esa acción local a una parte más visible. Y finalmente, si actuamos, nos reunimos, escuchamos, pero ahora nosotros, no sé cómo decirlo en castellano, nosotros Daejeon, pues nosotros vamos a vivir Daejeon. ¿Y qué queremos con esto? Daejeon, la ciudad nos está invitando a conocerles y a conocerles de otra manera, ¿no? A conocer sus experiencias y cómo ven ellos también su ciudad, cómo ellos nos cuentan su ciudad y sus acciones, ¿no? Entonces, una serie de plenarias que quieren compartir con nosotros, tienen temas que para ellos son muy importantes, que se ligan con los temas del Pacto para el Futuro, pero los temas como la paz, como por ejemplo también los temas del cuidado, temas de resiliencia, temas de smart cities, son importantes para ellos y quieren que nosotros compartamos esas experiencias. Aparte de esto, han preparado un programa también de actividades lúdicas, de festivales. Hay un concierto de K-pop para los que les gusten esa clase de actividades, una serie de... están muy conectados también con la ciencia, así que es un track que va a ser también muy bonito porque pues si nosotros somos, digamos, amantes de los gobiernos locales, se puede decir así, pues qué mejor que estar ahí y disfrutar esa ciudad, ¿no? Sentirla y vivirla también.
Daejeon is a very vibrant city, of course, where innovation and technology plays a very important role in their service delivery and in the way they understand economy. So we will be able to experience and learn a lot of their science and innovation technologically. But they have also, they are very keen to try and ensure that peace building is part of the discussion. I mean, it's no secret for anyone how the situation between North and South Korea has been evolving or not in the past years. And they would like peace to be a very important component of our time together in Daejeon, not only for the Daejeon track, but in general. So what about the structure? How does it look like?
Bueno, la vamos a mostrar, ¿no? Aquí en primicia lo que hemos estado trabajando.
And the ones that are having coffee, they will not be able to see it anymore.
Pues mira, se lo perdieron. Bueno, básicamente así se ve la estructura que estamos trabajando. Evidentemente no tenemos horarios finales, pero los días, pues al principio vamos a tener un protagonismo de esta parte que hablábamos de Daejeon, ¿no? Cómo descubrir Daejeon, cómo entrar en esta clase de actividades. Luego estamos pensando la parte de los caucuses y las reuniones de las secciones, ¿no? Tenemos, como ustedes pueden ver, en la mitad una parte que pusimos prime time, que quiere decir, pues, estamos impulsando a que la gente vaya a Daejeon, ¿no? Se supone que debe ser un evento presencial, pero sabemos que no necesariamente todo el mundo va a poder llegar y ya ahora, evidentemente, ninguno de los eventos son totalmente online o totalmente presenciales, con lo cual, durante el prime time vamos a tener estas sesiones para atraer, digamos, más gente. Entonces vemos el segundo día, comenzamos con el Daejeon Track, seguimos con las secciones y tenemos el comité financiero, y ya esos días comienza este pedazo, ¿no? De la interacción con los Local for Action, con el Local for Action Track y el Networking Hub que tendremos ahí. Ya el tercer día abre a todos los otros tracks, comenzando con el Assembly, seguimos con comité estatutario, Town Halls, el Research Forum, y hemos preparado también, pensado preparar estas como conferencias, ¿no? Como sesiones importantes con los temas del pacto, ¿no? Para tener grandes sesiones de debate en las que podamos compartir. Ven la opening session, pero básicamente los siguientes días tienen que ver como con esa interacción entre los tracks, y pues esto así se ve por el momento.
Yeah, we are trying to, I mean, we are going to be in a challenging time zone in terms of, there is a very big part of the world that is going to have difficulties to connect, just as they have today, right? Our colleagues from Korea are suffering from the time zone now as we speak here. This is the very reason why we are calling the end of the day the prime time. And that's the moment where we're going to be ensuring the bigger discussions around the axis of the pact, indeed, and where we are going to be having the opening session, which people will be able to follow live. And we will also have the World Council in a format that will allow the membership to follow. So this is why this is all concentrating at this end of the day, which is the very early morning here in Europe, and very challenging for the Americas, but achievable as well for Africa and for the Middle East. So we're trying to bring this hybrid reality to the Congress as well, to ensure that we can interact as broadly as possible. But I want to emphasize that the Congress exercise is going to be an in-person exercise. We want people to actually go there. So you will be missing a lot if you don't come and if you don't mobilize people. And it is our belief that we will be able to have significant representation in place there, so that we can also respect our decision-making processes and to make them as transparent and participatory as possible. So this is what we have as a proposal to you all. I don't know, we will be talking more about this tomorrow. You will be able to watch a video from our colleagues in Daejeon that are going to be explaining how they perceive the Daejeon track. It will be shown tomorrow. But if you have any questions right now that you would like to address to us, we will be happy to answer. We are in your hands. Any questions? As the day evolves, the more clear we get. It's all very easy. No, I think it's a very clear structure. We will have more occasions throughout the week to go through this. I hope that you recognize how intertwined it is now, this notion of the Pact for the Future. You can see it in the structure of the Congress. You can see the different policy-making tracks that are also reflected in the Congress. I don't think we have even ever been so ready for a Congress as we are now, so early on, you know, because the tracks are something that we know and that have been working before. So there you have the CARE agenda translate into people, planet, and government. We meet with the statutory track, we advocate with the assembly track, we listen with the town hall track, and we act with local for action. I hope that the discussions throughout the week are going to lead us to enrich all of these tracks. And I'm going to try and see whether our colleagues from the local for action hubs are with us. I understand that we have some colleagues online that would be able to share their experience on the local for action hubs. Maybe a short introduction, Maria Alejandra, on what the local for action hubs are. And I know you have a meeting later, and I see Carla Rey over there, who is acting as the hub of hubs with AICRE. So just some thoughts on what the local for action hubs have meant for us and where we are heading with them. Because they started in Tangier, the last time we all met together.
Bueno, voy a decirlo también un poco desde mi perspectiva personal.
Claro, sí.
Para mí, los Local for Action Tracks son, tracks, ¿ves? Ya me estoy confundiendo. Los Local for Action Hubs son una oportunidad de ver las experiencias de terreno, las experiencias de sus territorios, de encontrarse con otras experiencias y de hacer esas experiencias de localización visibles, expandibles y multiplicables. Eso para mí son esas experiencias del Local for Action Hubs.
And they are also a way for us to go to the international community, United Nations among others, with experiences that are not built to respond to an agenda, but existing experiences at local level that perfectly contribute to achieving the global agendas. And I think that shift of perspective from the bottom up is extremely important for us. And I think there are many people in this room that know of good cases, good things that are happening at local level that should become a local for action hub. How many do we have now? We don't have enough, but we're happy, but we don't have enough. How many do we have?
Nosotros en este momento tenemos 13 experiencias que están ya lanzadas, o sea que ya están en camino, y 10 experiencias más que están en proceso, porque nosotros hacemos dentro del equipo un proceso también de acompañamiento para que estas experiencias puedan ser, como decía antes, multiplicables, que tengan un tema tratable, que tengan como esa proyección internacional también para poder, como decías tú, comunicarlas a nivel global, ¿no? Entonces, 13 activas, 10 en camino y esperamos que muchísimas más.
And the experiences are all feeding into this platform that you see now on the screen. Our hope is that as we evolve and as we work together throughout this year, that we get more experiences from the Global South. I think that one of the difficulties that we are having with this is that this is not a project-based initiative, so it is something that, that emerges from the local practices, and we are not supporting this with capacity building yet. So what we have discovered is that probably some of the knowledge that is there from the current local for action hubs can be utilized to also provide capacity to potential local for action hubs. And I think our sister networks, such as Educating Cities and CIDEU and our own sections, need to get more involved in identifying those experiences that are worth replicating and ending up in our research agenda, in our advocacy agenda. So that is very much our hope. From my personal perspective, the local for action hubs are going to be the future of our advocacy, if you ask me. I think the time is ready now to ensure that we show to the world the things that are happening on the ground at local level as an answer to global challenges. And as we see our spaces in the international community enhancing and amplifying, I think the space for local for action hubs is also increasing with much more impact than just a mere case. So allow me to open the floor now for those of you that might want to ask questions. I understand that we have colleagues from Local for Action Hubs also in participating in Zoom. So let us see if we see some of their hands who would like to interact. Do you recognize any of them?
Sí, tenemos a Xi'an, a Balongo y a Bilbao.
So who would like to go first? What do you think? Shall we invite Balongo?
Hello, Emilia.
Hola, Gisela.
Do you
¿No te
hear me?
escuchamos?
Ahí está, sí.
Hello to you all. It is a pity for me not to be there in Barcelona in person, but it is an honor to be here, listen to all of your experiences, all of your words. And Emilia, as always, you are such an example. You said so much about what we believe. You talk about love, strength, ambition, enthusiasm, flexibility, opinion. And during this session, we also talked about other words that I think that are connected to local hubs. For example, you said that in that Congress, in that moment, you have no stages. And I think that in local for action hubs, we also do not have stages because we are all in the same platform. We are all even though we have more or less experience, we are all together learning, spreading information, going deeper in the processes and trying to have that multiplier effect that we all need to bring democracy, to bring the stage to all the citizens in our case. In our local hub for action, we will try to multiply the participatory processes, and we really believe that will be a place where we all will learn together and we will be richer together.
Thank you very much, Gisela. And we will have the opportunity to listen to the mayor of Balongo as well, participating in our town hall session. So we have those two views from the city and the two involvements, which are really important for us, you know, with the technical and the political involvement of our membership. Thank you very much. Let us go to Xi'an, and I would like to invite our dear friend, Mr. Siki, to say a few words. Xi'an has done so much with UCLG lately, a very important exercise on culture, 7 keys, really relevant work already trying to permeate UCLG through all the activities of Xi'an. We are truly grateful. Some views on the Local for Action Hub, and welcome.
Thank you, Emilia. I think, first of all, I would like to congratulate to the very successful retreat today at the opening, because I think I remember 2 years ago, we stayed together in Tangier, and the first time we report to the retreat about our local flag hub in the Tangier retreat. That's a very impressive meeting. And I think this initiative of local flagship is very, very important because it is what we do for the localization of SDGs. So we act. I love this slogan, and for the local for action hub check. It's very important for us. So this is the first time we find our priorities of the city combined to the SDGs together and use the UCLG platform to improve the international networks with our friends, with our international organizations. So this is very, very important initiative for the city, for us. I also would like to emphasize that during the past 2 years, we set up some international training programs. We set up the International Universities Alliance to make our initiatives more influences. I think this is important, very, very great initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you as always for disregarding time zones and just being with us all the time. It's really incredible how committed you are and how useful always your inputs are. Thank you very much for that. I know that we have some hubs here in the room. I'm going to invite Bilbao, who's also online, to take the floor. And then I understand there are 2 more hubs that maybe would like to take the floor. I see Cuenca there and Madrid probably. Bilbao, please, go ahead. Bienvenida.
Muy buenas tardes, María Alejandra. Muy buenas tardes, Emilia. Muchísimas gracias por esta oportunidad. Estamos encantadas de poder asistir a esta sesión, aun cuando sea en la distancia. Y en este sentido, bueno, pues queremos poner en valor también justamente una iniciativa que consideramos que está totalmente conectada con el espíritu de los Local for Action Hub y que tiene como base precisamente la experiencia que tuvimos en Bilbao con nuestro proyecto Ciudad de Valores. Y pensamos que después de haber oído en esta sesión lo que han dicho las participantes y los participantes anteriormente, pues esto está más de moda, vamos a decir, que nunca en realidad, ¿no? El proyecto Bilbao Ciudad de Valores pues ha venido a ser como un antídoto para equilibrar allí donde han surgido problemas anteriormente y desde luego la pandemia ha sido uno de ellos. Y la verdad es que estamos convencidos de que en este sentido la ciudad ha respondido a la pandemia, como lo han hecho otras muchas ciudades seguramente y otros organismos locales, desde una perspectiva que enfatiza la importancia de estos valores. Y además estamos convencidos de que los valores no es algo pasado de moda, sino algo muy concreto que lejos de constituirse en principios abstractos que no se pueden definir, se constituyen en principios que guían la acción y que orientan a las ciudades en su caminar. Y eso es lo que estamos tratando de hacer desde Bilbao, animar a las ciudades a que compartan con nosotros este proceso para definir lo que es importante para sus ciudades y para otros gobiernos locales y hacer este trabajo conjunto de reflexión y este caminar de la mano de CGLU. Y en ese sentido, bueno, pues decir que hemos empezado nuestro caminar desde el año pasado, desde junio del año pasado. Estamos a punto de celebrar el 15 de marzo nuestro segundo foro de trabajo y, por supuesto, invitamos a todos, todas las presentes en este acto que se va a prolongar el retiro durante toda la semana a que se unan en nuestro esfuerzo por poner los valores en el centro de las ciudades. Muchísimas gracias a todas y sobre todo Emilia por esa presentación tan inspiradora y tan llena de entusiasmo para toda la semana. Muchísimas gracias, es que ricasco.
Es que ricasco, muchas gracias. Vamos ahora a Cuenca, Ecuador. Creo que es muy importante lo que traen los participantes. Cada Local for Action Hub tiene una temática diferente, ¿no? En Bilbao estamos hablando de valores, en Xi'an estamos hablando de educación y juventud, de participación en Balongo. Todos tienen enfoques diferentes, pero también a medida que vamos trabajando juntas nos damos cuenta de que las ideas van saltando de un Local for Action Hub a otro, ¿no? Y con María Alejandra y con Carla Rey, que está por aquí también, como Hub de Hubs, estamos intentando ver a dónde nos lleva eso, ¿no? Esa cross-fertilization, como dicen los anglófonos, ¿no? Esa polinización, hacia dónde nos va a llevar. O sea, que es una invitación muy bonita también de Bilbao, de que los valores jueguen un papel importante en el resto de los hubs. Y ahora nos vamos a Cuenca, en Ecuador.
Bueno, muy buenos días para los colegas que están en las Américas, en Latinoamérica. Buenas tardes para quienes estamos aquí. Saludos desde Cuenca, Ecuador. Nosotros somos un Local for Action Hub ya 1 año y medio. Y nosotros nos hemos basado en Learning by Joining. Hemos buscado que podamos conjugar al sector público, al privado, a las organizaciones de la sociedad civil y a las empresas en ese reto por localizar los ODS, bajarlos a quienes estamos no solamente en los municipios, no solamente brindando servicios públicos, sino para quienes están en la academia, en las empresas, y que sean conscientes que todos desde alguna manera estamos contribuyendo a estos compromisos mundiales. Y otra cosa que nos hemos basado es que los ODS son locales, ¿no? Que podemos todos, desde las diferentes actividades, quienes brindan suministro de agua potable, quienes están en las agencias de cooperación, pero también quienes están en las empresas y tienen programas sociales a nivel de las empresas, todos podemos contribuir, los estudiantes. Así que hemos construido de manera virtual un campus ODS donde brindamos formación especializada para todos estos sectores y donde también buscamos tener formadores de formadores, poder replicar ese conocimiento y que no quede únicamente, como decía, en los departamentos de planificación, en quienes hacemos cooperación y hablamos de ODS, sino que estén a nivel de toda la ciudadanía. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. Y yo aquí realmente veo puntos muy interesantes de conexión con Xi'an. Creo que hay una posibilidad de emparejamiento muy bonito, y también se me ocurre que la ciudad de Tandil, que nos acompaña en la agenda de ciudades intermedias, tiene también una idea de laboratorio de talentos que está implementando con los campus universitarios, y que creo que también conecta muy bien con Xi'an y con Cuenca. O sea, que espero que la segunda parte de estos hubs que tenemos ahora pueda ir por ahí, y que hoy en la reunión de trabajo que los que estáis aquí vais a tener, podáis explorar más de estas posibilidades. A mí me había dicho un pajarito por WhatsApp que el alcalde Sefiani había pedido la palabra, pero yo no sé si todavía está con nosotros. Sí, señor, ahí le tengo. Alcalde, desde Chefchaouen, díganos, a usted la palabra.
Hola, hola querida Emilia, hola mis amigas, mis amigos. Es un gran placer de ver a vosotros todos hoy. No he podido venir hoy, pero voy a venir el jueves. Yo quería primero agradecer a Emilia y todo el equipo del secretario mundial del gran trabajo que está haciendo. Si hay una palabra, la resiliencia, es una palabra clave para nuestra organización, para nuestra familia. Entonces, felicitación. Cada vez innovación, innovación y adaptación que hacéis siempre es un gran éxito. Yo quería hablar también de lo que se hace, porque compartir el conocimiento y las buenas prácticas entre las ciudades, entre las regiones es muy importante. Y lo que se ha haciendo en el Local Hub Action es una gran esfuerzo que está hecho. He visto que muchas ciudades intermedias que participan en esto, Balongo, Cuenca, también otras ciudades.
Alcalde.
Sí, va a venir también. Estamos preparando nosotros. Y eso es muy importante y apoyamos mucho a esta gran iniciativa. Muchísimas gracias. No voy a hablar más. Solamente felicitar a vosotras y a vosotros.
Tenemos muchas ganas de verte, alcalde, muchísimas ganas, pero sobre todo tenemos muchas ganas de que Chef Shawen y su cultura de alimentación mediterránea sea un Local for Action Hub. Eso no nos lo podemos perder. O sea que aquí quedó comprometido, ya está estado, alcalde.
Ahora mismo.
Ahora mismo manda usted el formulario.
Sí, ahora mismo, porque nosotros, la ciudad de Chefchaouen es patrimonio inmaterial de la humanidad sobre la dieta mediterránea, la cultura alimentaria mediterránea. Entonces, vamos desde hoy, a partir de hoy.
Muchísimas gracias, alcalde. Bueno, y tenemos a la ciudad de Madrid, que también tiene un hub. Tenemos a Diputación de Barcelona, que también facilita un hub. Y yo no sé si nuestros compañeros de FAMSI. Ahora, todo esto os tengo que pedir rapidito porque ya empezó otro workshop. Pero es que me encanta hablar con vosotros. Por Madrid, ¿quién habla? Es que no le veo a Juan Carlos. Ay, que está ahí detrás. Juan Carlos. Te creo. Adelante, Juan Carlos, un gusto que estés con nosotros. Adelante.
¿Sí? Bien, he conseguido uno mejor. Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes a todos. Emilia, muchísimas gracias por darnos ocasión de contaros lo que estamos haciendo con el hub, con el Local for Action Hub que tenemos en marcha y que ya conocéis. Hace ya 2 años que empezamos con el bosque metropolitano en Madrid. Sabéis que tiene una extensión en superficie de 32.000 hectáreas, con una longitud, el objetivo de longitud de 75 kilómetros alrededor de la ciudad de Madrid. Es un bosque, el bosque metropolitano, o Metropolitan Forest, como también es conocido en inglés, que tiene efectivamente una trascendencia importante si nos atenemos a lo que representa el logro y el seguimiento de los ODS, puesto que, digamos, incide en el ODS 3, incide en el ODS 11 y especialmente en su meta 11.7, incide en el 11.13, en el ODS 13, en el ODS 17 y, en definitiva, nos gustaría contar con la participación de todos aquellos que tengáis interés y curiosidad por saber qué hacer, porque realmente lo que se plantea este bosque metropolitano, o lo que plantea para el futuro, es un cambio radical de la manera como entendemos la ciudad. Nada más, y atendiendo a que se me ha pedido ser breve, muchísimas gracias por escucharme. Gracias.
No, muchas gracias por traer. Además, este es un megaproyecto, ¿eh? Los Local for Action Hubs no son solo proyectos grandes, también hay visiones más pequeñas, pero en el caso de Madrid lo que nos trae a la mesa es un megaproyecto de cambio de pulmón para una ciudad capital, ¿no? Que creo que es muy, muy interesante, tocando un tema que hemos venido señalando hoy como un tema prioritario y estamos muy agradecidos de que esas ciudades como Xi'an, como Cuenca, como Madrid, que no necesitan de una red como CGLU para hacer una agenda internacional, sí que se comprometan con una red como esta para aprender, para intercambiar ideas y que se den cuenta al final de ese recorrido de que todos salimos ganando. O sea que estamos muy agradecidos con esto y creo que es una parte importante de esa conversación en grupo más pequeño sobre qué aspectos de esto que se está haciendo en el bosque metropolitano pueden ser de interés para otros hubs. Y pienso en Cuenca también, que tiene una parte también muy interesante con esto, con la cuestión de planificación, movilidad y demás, que creo que puede ser de gran utilidad. Pues de Madrid, y yo no sé, ha sido pura casualidad que todos los españoles queden al final, pero no ha sido intencionado, pero tenemos una experiencia muy bonita de la Diputación de Barcelona. Yo sé que Olivia Patton está por algún lugar, que además es, yo diría, de una temática muy importante que también ha salido varias veces hoy, la cuestión de igualdad de mujer, pero que también está conectada con otras no es solamente de la Diputación de Barcelona, ¿no? Tiene un ámbito internacional, diría yo. Olivia, a ti la palabra.
Exacto, Emilia. Muchas gracias. Y María Alejandra también, qué placer verte aquí, qué bueno conversar con todos ustedes, tanto en la sala como a través de esas ventanas, ¿no?, que comentaba Emilia. Rápidamente, exacto, Diputación de Barcelona tiene la suerte de acoger un Local for Action Hub centrado en el refuerzo de la participación política de las mujeres a nivel local. Tiene un ámbito mediterráneo, o sea, de momento estamos participando unos 40 gobiernos locales de la provincia de Barcelona y de Marruecos concretamente, pero sí que nuestra aspiración es mediterránea. Y la verdad es que, bueno, para nosotros es un proyecto clave, con un componente político indiscutible y, bueno, escuchaba, ¿no?, antes esta voluntad de reforzar la Comisión Permanente de Género, pues yo creo que aquí podrá haber sinergias, por supuesto, y también nuestra diputada, la señora Pilar Díaz, ha estado conversando con la asesora Ana Falú también en ese sentido. Bueno, solo decir que llevamos un año de trabajo, un año complicado, con pandemia, pero que tenemos mucha ilusión y esperanza y esperamos que, bueno, ir compartiendo con todos ustedes y sumando a más personas convencidas en la importancia de que la mujer también sea reforzada en el ámbito político local. Muchas gracias.
Pues muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros también. Y yo creo que algo también que es interesante es que los Local for Action Hubs, además de darnos visibilidad en la agenda internacional y de darnos los casos hacia los que podemos señalar con respecto a cómo podemos ir solucionando retos, también se están convirtiendo en componentes de aprendizaje, se están convirtiendo también en componentes de narrativa y están alimentando también todo el track del Town Hall. And that I find really, really interesting. You know that one new aspect that we're going to be discussing on Wednesday during the Town Hall Day is that town halls this time are not only about discussions, but actually we're also going to do deep dive visits. And some of the visits that we want to organize are certainly linked with the work that is being done with the Local for Action Hubs. So I think that is important to realize this also for the next steps that we are undertaking with the Local for Action Hubs. I don't know whether we had anyone else. I think FAMSI was here. Emilio, vas a ser tú quien tome la palabra. Perfecto. A ver si funciona. Si tienes que dar... A ver.
Hola. Sí, hola. Bueno, muchas gracias, Emilia. Muchas gracias a todos. Bueno, desde FANSI estamos trabajando desde hace ya varios años y ahora para nosotros, lo decía Marial, el Local for Action Hub es una oportunidad también, ¿no?, de visibilizar, poner en conexión y de alguna forma aprender también nosotros, ¿no? Estamos trabajando sobre la temática de servicios públicos. Para nosotros es algo que venimos, como digo, trabajando desde la cooperación de gobiernos locales en un proceso de defensa también de lo público, que nos parece fundamental. En el decálogo de CGLU está como primera prioridad, nos parece totalmente permanente, y esto era una oportunidad para darle otra dimensión, ¿no? Nosotros estamos poniendo en conexión a empresas públicas y otros instrumentos de gestión desde lo público, de servicios, en este caso de América Latina, en nuestro caso de nuestra red de gobiernos locales, de más de 130 gobiernos locales de Andalucía, y de África también. Ahora mismo estamos tocando estos continentes. La próxima actuación que tenemos, una pasantía que se va a realizar para conocer experiencias de gestión pública durante el mes de mayo. Se ha abierto una convocatoria para gobiernos locales. Nos va a resultar también una oportunidad para poner en conexión distintas visiones y distintas visiones también innovadoras de la gestión de determinados servicios públicos, sean aliados a esta iniciativa ONU Habitat y el Programa de Naciones Unidas para el Desarrollo, también Mercociudades por la parte latinoamericana, y bueno, ponerlo también al servicio de la organización, como no puede ser de otra manera. Esperamos que también para el Congreso sea para de ello uno de los temas relevantes e interesantes, porque nos gustaría ir y compartir mucho más trabajo con todas vosotras y vosotros.
Muchísimas gracias, Emilio. I think that's the idea. That's why we wanted to bring the Local for Action hubs to the first day of the retreat, to the opening of the retreat, because the Local for Action hubs need to be about highlighting what you do, but it also needs to be about feeding into the future of what we do together. And shaping agendas. I think local service provision will be critical for our advocacy in the future. That's why I was saying I think the Local for Action hubs are going to be a very critical advocacy tool. And I see my colleague, Secretary General of UCLG Africa, Jean-Pierre, sitting there quietly, taking notes in his phone. He takes notes in his phone. He's not reading WhatsApp. He's taking notes. It's true, right, Jean-Pierre? You do. And I want to challenge us, Jean-Pierre, not you, but us, to ensure that we develop a local for action kind of market in Afri-cities. We need to get more of the African experiences to be local for action hubs. So I'm not saying you need to answer now, but throughout these days, we need to find a way to ensure, because there is so much going on in Africa, in our African membership, that is worth highlighting. I don't know if you want to comment or if I did just bother you right now.
Je fais un commentaire sur d'abord ce qu'on a fait jusqu'à présent ici. Il est remarquable que c'est sous le Covid, alors qu'on était immobile, qu'on a fait les progrès les plus importants en direction de l'ONU. Et ça, on le doit à la manière dont vous avez magistralement maîtrisé la communication digitale, et ça, bravo. Je voudrais aussi dire que maintenant, il faut transformer l'essai. Je le dis parce qu'on vient, nous-mêmes, Emilia, vous avez été partie prenante de ça, d'avoir un forum des autorités locales de l'Union africaine, de l'Union européenne, et on n'a pas transformé l'essai. Donc faisons attention, les avancées ne signifient pas forcément qu'on transforme l'essai. Là, à Bruxelles, alors qu'à Abidjan, on était à 2 doigts de transformer l'essai, à Bruxelles, on ne l'a pas transformé. Ça, c'est important. La La deuxième chose que je voudrais souligner, c'est que nous avons besoin de l'enthousiasme que vous représentez. Mais nous avons aussi besoin de prudence nécessaire. Le monde est en train de bouillir. Et nous sommes enthousiastes. Il faut être prudent. Des jeunes se présentent dans une circonstance exceptionnelle. Nous ne savons même pas ce qui va se passer d'ici des jeunes par rapport à la situation du monde. Comment nous pouvons donner notre voix devant la situation de ce monde? Est-ce que nous devons être inaudibles? Dans cette retraite, il faut aussi parler de cela. Et en Afrique, nous avons appelé l'attention de l'Union africaine sur le rôle des villes intermédiaires. Parce que nous pensons que l'orientation du monde telle qu'elle est maintenant doit être repensée totalement. Et il faut le penser à partir de la base. La mondialisation connaît maintenant ses limites. Les préceptes que nous avons utilisés jusqu'à présent doivent être réinterrogés. Et nous devons, à Africité, venir dans une réflexion pour cette réinterrogation. Et nous avons demandé une connexion avec l'Union africaine et avec la Commission économique pour l'Afrique. Et ça va en droite ligne de ce qui a été proposé, c'est qu'il y a une liaison entre la relation de CGLU Monde avec l'ONU et la relation de ces sections avec les représentations de l'ONU dans les différents continents. Donc je pense que réfléchissons à ça ici et regardons comment, à Daejeon, nous allons interpeller les Nations Unies et interpeller les autres acteurs pour que la place des collectivités territoriales ne soit plus rhétorique, mais réelle. Merci.
Tomorrow we will have the opportunity, Jean-Pierre, to talk about this part of the priorities from the perspective of the region. This is the assembly track. We will talk on Thursday about this structural relationship with the United Nations with colleagues from sister organizations that are coming for the annual meeting of the global task force. I very much agree that there is. I think we need to find the balance, and I think this is the place to discuss this. We need to find the balance between the hardship of times and the difficulties that we face. And the little advancements that we do in some areas with the capacity and the ambition that the movement has. And I think that moments like Daejeon, like Afri-Cities, like this very retreat are these moments where we need to energize and identify those areas where we find ourselves capable, while also acknowledging, okay, these are the areas where we might not be doing that well. And I agree with you. I know that Viviane from our caucus, Youth Caucus, has also been participating in the summit, in the African and European Union summit. I feel as if we didn't move the needle there, right? But we maintained the needle, which is something. We managed to have the summit. We fought for that. It's an achievement. And I'm looking at Marlene, who has been fighting the good fight for us there in Brussels. But I agree with you that we haven't moved the needle and that we haven't even shown the ambition or the capacity that we feel we have as a movement. That's why I am looking for spaces like AfriCities and Daejeon to create that space. And I really welcome you seeing the retreat in this light. I've been terrible because we are like over an hour late and everything, you know. So the timing is a little bit missing, but I hope that you have all enjoyed what we have done here today, the discussion that we have had. My colleagues from Learning are going to invite you to a 30-minute game so that you actually come to know some of the things, some of the tools that we have developed together. There are parallel meetings, working sessions. One is taking place upstairs. They are doing graffiti on the power of we, some of the notions that we have discussed today from a communication perspective. There will be the local for action hubs. It has been a pleasure for me to be your host for this afternoon. I thank you for your patience. And above all, for your inspiration. So in your hands, learning colleagues, you want us to go to coffee first, or you want to give a brief introduction?
So, thank you very much. We will meet back here in 5-10 minutes to whoever wants to engage in a dynamic with the learning games that have been developed for the localizing SDGs learning modules. So we'll be doing one around the plaza where we use the SDG principles to revamp, redesign a local square. And then another dynamic on communication and working in decentralized cooperation projects where we get to think about how different people communicate, engage with each other. So these are two games in our learning modules on localizing the SDGs. That we want to try with you. So if you still have energy, please come back. If not, get some coffee, recharge, and then come back here in 10 minutes.
And thank you, everybody back home. This is for in-person only participants. Thank you for your patience. See you tomorrow. See you soon. Bye.